Hey, outside, Damon and Ratto, Larry Krueger in once again for Raimundo, who will be back next week, and then I'm taking off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Somebody on Twitter said, hey, Damon, we need a little action on this, on either the Jimmy Garoppolo new location or Juan Soto actually getting traded to the Giants, and news always breaks when I'm on vacation. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're going to get a big story next week. Well, I'll be in Chicago, drinking beer, eating pizza. Got a buddy of mine who's turning 50.
Nice.
That's a big one. You got to celebrate that, right?
Well, that's a great town to go out in, man.
It is.
Oh, my God. Geno's East on the north side.
You know it.
Second City. Man, Firehouse Grill, a little barbecue place right by Second City on the north side.
I've actually been there.
Been there?
Yeah.
That little patio.
Yes. Yeah, that place is great. Great city. It's going to be a really good time. And while I'm on vacation, I'm sure several massive breaking stories will happen. Nothing will happen because I'm here today. No, but we got an awful lot happening this afternoon. We got a second half of a baseball season officially underway. They were playing day baseball over in Oakland. I think they still are right now, getting in a doubleheader against the Tigers. We got ourselves Giants and Doyers tonight. Carlos Rodon goes up against Mitch White, who I got to tell you, of all the Dodgers pitchers, I think I know the least about him. So we're going to have Bill Shaiken of the LA Times stop on by a little bit later on this hour. Kyle Posey, who is the managing editor of Niners Nation and does quite a bit of work with you, Larry.
Yeah, great guy. Seriously, I do a weekly hit on my YouTube channel, The Krueg Show, with Kyle Posey from Niners Nation. He's the managing editor, and he's awesome. He knows the Niners backwards and forwards, and Josh Rosen just signed with the Browns. Does that mean that the Browns are out on Jimmy Garoppolo? Were they ever in?
No, it didn't sound like they were in. I mean, everyone out of Cleveland just said that, no matter what goes down with Deshaun Watson, they're not going to be slipping into that Jimmy Garoppolo business. So that's why I've just been saying the game of musical chairs, I think, is going to be tough to find. We've known for a fact now since yesterday that the 49ers basically told Jimmy Garoppolo and his agent, hey, we can't find a dance partner. Why don't you hit the dance floor and see if you can find one? So we'll see what happens there. David B. Fleming will join us at 5:15 again. Giants second half getting underway. And boy, it gets underway with a serious stretch of baseball games. 8 of their next 15 are against the Dodgers. I don't think catching the Dodgers is really in the cards. Wild card is in the cards. So play well against the Dodgers, and it feels a little early, but there's a little out-of-town scoreboard watching that I think that has to come with just about every single Giants game. It's not just did they win? Did the Cardinals lose? Are the Phillies backing up? Who are the other teams that they're in this wild card conversation with? We're going to take a look at all of that. An awful lot of stuff to get into. We kind of opened up our 5 things that need to click for the 49ers to be a playoff team. We're going to get through those today in their entirety, Larry. And this happened late in our show yesterday, Joe Lacob's fine. Do you realize what the NBA fined Joe Lacob, that $500,000? That's nothing short of the 3rd largest fine in NBA history for such a benign comment that didn't feel like it gave away any sort of confidential or overly, unjust criticism of the league. He basically, is saying, I'm spending money to keep my guys in-house. I think it's unfair that we get taxed so hard. It's really not a controversial thing to say at all.
But it hits them where they live, which is in their pocketbook, and they're going to react. And then you got to think it was going to be severe as far as the actual dollar amount, because it's a fine of an owner. It's a fine of a guy who's got billions of dollars. So, but I agree with you as far as I first of all, I agree with Joe. I think the repeater tax is ridiculously punitive, and it really penalizes teams who do it the right way. Because in an ideal world, wouldn't you want to, I don't know, instead of missing on all your picks, wouldn't you want to hit on all your picks? And then once you bring those players into your organization, Damon, wouldn't you want them to be like, I don't know, popular with your fan base and players that you'd want to retain, right? So then you retain them and you spend a lot of money to retain them. And now you've got this luxury tax bill that is spiraling. That's, more than you paid for the franchise itself. I mean, it's I understand it, and I understand competitive balance elements within the CBA, but that's going too far.
It really feels like it is. And in a, shall I say, re-edited, because the Joe Lacob cut that we played yesterday, it was in the moment edited properly. But Grandy today kind of re-listened to that original interview, and he backed up what Joe Lacob said just a few seconds. And basically, Joe Lacob sets the table saying, he doesn't say this, but he intimates it, like, I'm probably going to get fined for this. So he thinks, I think he even knew it might be coming, but he said it anyways, which a former co-host of yours would describe as FU money.
or as simple as he publicly wanted to advance the conversation and was willing to pay the freight to do so.
Hey, he's willing to pay the freight on a lot of things. One of the guys he pays most freight on is this guy.
First name Stephen, last name Curry. He came into my life, now everything is less blurry.
And I'm just telling you, last night, I look, I don't pay any attention to the ESPYs. I don't. And to prove that basically no one does either, there's no award show that really matters that hands out its awards, and then not a single person is talking about the awards the next day. I can't tell you what team won what, who, what player won what. To me, the award show for sports are called playoffs and championship games. Those are the award shows. So no one's sitting around talking about, well, did you see who won best male athlete today? Ooh, like it's an Oscar or anything like. Nobody cares about the results. But I guess a lot of people tuned into the process, which Steph Curry, as the host of the ESPYs, he was part of that process, and apparently he knocked it out of the park. We're going to go through the Steph Curry ESPY highlight reel. I've already listened to some of it. There is some funny stuff in there. There's no doubt about it. We're brought to you by BMW Fairfield, now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit bmwfairfield.com today to book your visit. So one of the opening montages was former ESPY hosts giving Steph Curry advice.
Right. Peyton Manning
had this to say.
Hey, Steph, Peyton here. Got a couple thoughts for you. Listen, I know you must be feeling a lot of pressure because it has been a long time since an NBA player performed well in Los Angeles. When I hosted the ESPYs 5 years ago, I made a little quip about Kevin Durant wanting to play for a great team that made a lot of headlines. Feel free to use that one because it hasn't aged a day.
It's true, but no.
If you start to get nervous and you lose confidence, just do what I did. Just remind yourself how much worse the show would be if your brother was hosting.
That's good. We're going to take a little shot at LA. We'll take a shot at Durant, and we'll also take a shot at your brother, all in good fun, of course. But I tell you what, Bob Myers has intimated today that the Warriors are out of those KD sweepstakes. He told NBA.com's and current friend here of 95.7 The Game, Mark Medina, saying, I like our team where it's at. I want to give those guys a chance to do it again. It's a good group. We're lucky. It's been fun to see. We were really hunting last year. Now I guess we're back to being the hunted, which I didn't think we would be. We'll see. We'll see if we can handle it. Basically what he's saying, Larry, is Kevin Durant, all things standing, my team's on the court. That's just the way it is. And the Brooklyn Nets got a problem that they're trying to figure out. The Warriors don't, and they're not going to be back in the Kevin Durant business. I think that much is clear.
Yeah, and I'm relieved because as much as I like Durant and admire him as a player, I enjoyed this last year more than the final year of Durant, and I want to see this thing, go all the way to the finish line. I want to see Wiseman. I want to see Moody. I want to see this thing, Kuminga. I want to see them come together. So I'm happy. I'm happy. I will say this though, just one thing on the anti-ESPN tip. ESPN they have such different standards for how they treat like basketball players and NBA players compared to baseball players. Did you see what they did last night to Trey Mancini? They had him fly in for this player of the year thing. And he beat colon cancer. And then they gave it to a guy who tore his ACL. I don't know. The ACL, colon cancer. To me, they wouldn't have done that to the NBA player. They would have said, you know what, you're not going to win. And they would have done a little video, but it's just Trey Mancini. So screw him, right? He's just some random baseball player. Let him hop a flight, get into a suit, come on down. And then we'll just, even though his comeback was clearly way, way greater than anybody ever blew out an ACL. We won't give it to him, but we'll just make him come out for the event.
I remember there were a few years ago, there was
tasteless and costless.
There was a girl who played high school. I think she played high school basketball in the state of Ohio, and she had to miss her entire senior year because she was dying of cancer. It was terminal. And she got out of hospital to come and shoot free throws in a game. You know, like they fouled her, she shot free throws, and then they took her off the court, and then like not even a month later, she died. And it was one of the more inspirational, tears everywhere, and she was nominated for Female Inspirational Athlete of the Year, won by Caitlyn Jenner that year. You know, I mean,
wow.
That's how Caitlyn Jenner, that's how Diane Sawyer got the exclusive with Caitlyn Jenner. They said, well, we're going to give you the ESPY if you'll do a sit down with Diane. And that's when you just knew that the whole thing was, there's nothing really genuine behind an awful lot of it. But anyways, I guess Steph Curry's genuine attempt to host this thing, he pulled it off. I mean, what can't that guy do? It's pretty impressive. He's got a lot of skill at this life. He's doing a pretty damn good job. We are just getting underway. Like I said, Bill Shaiken from the LA Times, chasing the Dodgers is what the Giants need to do. They start tonight. We'll talk about the second half with Bill Shaiken. Dave Fleming in our 5 o'clock hour. Kyle Posey, the managing editor for Niners Nation, is going to stop on by today. And we got open phone lines and a lot to talk about on a day where we got some good sound and a whole bunch of stuff to get into. So it's good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe to Damon and Ratto on the Odyssey app, wherever you find your favorite podcast, which of course is the internet. Where else would you find a podcast? That's where you go. Larry Krueger in for Ray Ratto today on 95.7 The Game.
It's the start of football season.
Great run, trying to get to the edge. Get there, Nick Bosa. What a play.
49ers training camp starts next week. The morning roast.
I want to go back to the playoffs.
Willard and Dibbs. Now back to Damon and Ratto on 95.7 The Game. Brought to you by BMW Fairfield. Now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit BMWFairfield.com today to book your visit.
Damon and Ratto, we stream live on Twitch and YouTube. Head to Twitch, head to YouTube. Catch us there. One of the things that you will notice today is that doesn't look like Ray Ratto. That looks like Larry Krueger, who was in for Ray all this week. Ray will be back next week. Again, I'll be bouncing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. So I'm sure, a lot of things will happen then. Things always happen when I'm on vacation. Something just happened right now, though. Oh, my gosh. I don't know how big of a deal it is, but we got ourselves a little bit of a move to announce. The San Francisco Giants are going to start their second half. Well, I guess they're not starting their second half because he's been placed on the 15-day IL with left hamstring strain and is going to be in Arizona while he recovers. But the Giants have just signed right-handed pitcher Trevor Rosenthal to a one-year major league contract for the remainder of the season. It'll be at a prorated rate of a $4.5 million contract. And Rosenthal, in his early 30s, he has not pitched in over 2 years. He has not pitched since 2020 when he appeared in 23 combined games for the Royals and Padres. He went 1-0 with a 1.90 ERA, but obviously didn't, have it or enough. He bounced around. Nobody wanted him, kind of got out, and he's been dealing with some nerve damage, and he's damaged goods. But in his 8-year major league career, he's done quite a bit of damage as a guy coming out of the bullpen. He's got 132 saves. I know the Cardinals relied on him an awful lot. He pitched over 364 career innings in 373 games. He was an all-star in 2015 with the Cardinals. I think he didn't even have a cup of coffee with the A's for a minute.
Yeah. Pitched for the A's.
So, yeah.
Throws hard. Righty, throws 97, 98, and has maintained that stuff through a number of injuries. You mentioned some of the injuries, but he also had a torn labrum in his hip last July. He had a thoracic outlet syndrome deal the year before that. But when this guy's on the field, he brings it. I mean, high 90s. He's got experience. Mauricio Jovera was transferred to the 60-day DL. So whatever Jovera's injury is obviously serious. His year's done.
Man, I tell you, I thought for a second he was really going to help this team out because when he looked good, he looked great. And then when he looked off, he was way off.
Yeah. Jovera, you mean? Yeah,
Jovera
was throwing 96 himself. He looked pretty good.
He had a monster outing in San Diego, I think.
Just like a week ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So, but now the Giants have somebody at least they can put at the end of the game for high leverage innings and an anchor point of a veteran that's been there before, who's pitched in October. So we'll see. Maybe they can get him healthy. I do think it's interesting that they're taking this route because I thought there was a very good chance, Damon, that with the trade deadline coming up August 2nd or 3rd, that they would use prospects to trade for a reliever. But if you're going to trade all your prospects to the Nationals for Juan Soto, maybe you don't want to trade for a reliever.
Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. But on the Comcast Business text line from the 510, it says, I'm so tired of Giants making these types of moves. Why? It costs them nothing. Oh, it's money. It's all it is. They give up nothing. This is a complete can only work out. If it doesn't, you have nothing really to lose moves. There is another move that was made today, and it's funny. I was just talking with Ray about this like 2 weeks ago when the Giants really knocked him around, and I kind of opened up not only the box score that night, but looked at his season and how bad he was getting cuffed because Dallas Keuchel was a Cy Young Award winner. Today, he got DFA'd.
He's done
by the Diamondbacks, and he looks washed.
You saw the Giants hit around on him, right?
He looks as washed as you can get.
Yeah, he's done.
But doesn't that feel like a Farhan move? Pick him up, tell him he doesn't have to pitch for like 35 days. Just rest up your arm, and we'll see if we can get 3 starts out of you somewhere in the second half for nothing. Nobody wants you. Farhan identifies the one thing, what do you got left? Well, all I got is a changeup. All right, well, we're going to ask you to throw a changeup 83 times and just your best pit, whatever you got. I mean, he did look as washed as laundry. He really did. But Doesn't it feel like a Farhan move? Like, oh, anyone with past experience at a high level who's washed out now, let's see if I can wring one more drop out of you.
Yeah, no, I think I don't put it past Farhan to take a look. Why? Because the price is right. All these people saying they don't like these Giants moves. There's no risk. It's one thing. And I don't think people, you got that text today, but I don't think that's about Rosenthal as much as it's about Padlow and Fairchild and this parade of guys that nobody's heard of. Rosenthal, maybe this guy hasn't heard of Rosenthal. Rosenthal's an established big leaguer. So I'm all about that. But I hear the pushback from the Giant fans who are like, man, stop with the 4A parade. Stop with the nameless, faceless parade of guys that are here today, gone tomorrow. Let's invest in somebody. Let me invest in a prospect. Let me invest in a big leaguer, an actual big leaguer, not these kind of borderline big leaguers. So I understand that. But look at last year, Damon. Giants had to go with a bullpen game down the stretch in their 107-win year. I would say 5 or 6 times in September they went with a bullpen game because they ran out of starting pitching. So it's not totally absurd to say, well, maybe they'd sign Keuchel and try to rest him up because it's an eternally long season and you never know. You can never have enough starters.
I mean, it sounds nuts. But it also sounds like the discount rack that Farhan's done pretty well shopping off of. So
it's Marshall's.
Yeah, it's Ross, Odd Lots, whatever.
It's tennis shoes for $19.99.
Wait 2 more weeks, they'll be $9.99.
T-shirts for $5. It's TJ Maxx.
The look, I was listening because I was on the road earlier today, and I was listening to a little Willard and Dibbs, and I really like Mark an awful lot. I'm not trying to pick a fight or pick on his opinion of how he thinks teams should spend. No. I don't believe I'm broadcaster on broadcaster, time slot on time slot crime. It's not what I do. It's not how we roll. But he was saying essentially that, it's not that he just wants an owner to spend. He wants an owner to spend smartly. Okay. In football, your GM has to spend smartly. That's a cap sport. Normally, when you don't have an owner who's willing to blow past, a luxury tax number like it's a speeding limit, then that matters. In baseball, there's no such thing about the money I care about in owner spending for anything. There is no victory lap of, aren't we smart? Look at how many wins we cranked out of the least amount. Like, I don't care how successful Tampa Bay has been on a nickel and dime budget. Think how much more successful they could have been with all of that first-class thinkery and then 1 or 2 massive freaking contracts thrown in there, and it's an uncapped sport. If you'd like to spend to infinity, that option is available. And by the way, your ticket is going to go up 8%, and next year's beer is going to be 50 cents more than last year's beer in perpetuity anyways. So it's not like if we spend smartly, the money will be returned to the fans at some point. I don't care how much money Larry Bear, Charles Johnson, the kid, whatever, Farhan, whoever you want to say the money's pocket is coming out of for the Giants. I don't care if they spend so much their fingernails bleed reaching into their pockets every day. Like, who cares? Where is there any title for look how budget conscious we are? I don't understand why anyone is programmed to think winning baseball games for 50 cents on the dollar means more than winning baseball games for $1 on the dollar.
Oh, you don't remember fiscal responsibility night when they hoisted the flag in center field?
Fiscal responsibility night.
Fiscal responsibility. Oh, hell yes.
Like everybody got a little change thing like a paper boy used to have.
What's the counter to that, by the way? I like people who spend stupidly. I mean, was Joe Lacob's money that he spent on Draymond Green's Dom Perignon, was that smart money? You could make an argument. Anything that makes Draymond happy would be smart money, right? So, I mean, there's I don't know. I mean, I do find it funny that there's people who don't have millions who are constantly worried about people who have billions. I want fiscal responsibility. I want, I mean, the Niners have five Super Bowls. At least in 2 of those years, they lost money. Guess what? Their fans don't care. And those Super Bowls, it's not like nobody says, hey, the Niners have 3 Super Bowls and 2 where they actually lost money because they weren't fiscally responsible.
And you can't.
So it's really only 3 titles, and with those 2, they were kind of upside down on the final ledger there. Right. So those don't count.
Even though you were upside down that year, what is the price of those Super Bowls in retrospect? What does it now cost the Niners to call themselves 5-time Super Bowl champions? That's priceless. You can't put a price on that.
Well, and anybody who knows kind of how this game works in sports and sports media, anytime a team wins it all, there's tons of people that come from all these other aspects of life to your corner of the world. And then some of them leave and some of them stay. So an NBA title, rises the ratings for everybody that's associated with it, and it increases revenue for those teams beyond this year. So you're bringing new people into your tent every time you go compete for a title. And when you win it, that many more people stick around.
Let's say the Golden State Warriors are the Buffalo Bills +1. They're 0 for 6. They went to 5 straight NBA finals, lost all 5, went to the Boston final, lost that too. They're still at Oracle. Okay?
Right.
They're still at Oracle. You cannot put a price on winning a championship in professional sports. They're probably worth about $4 billion. Those titles makes them worth the 6. And the new building, of course. That's the huge money mover on their value, the new building. But you cannot put a price on a championship that has anything to do with, how did that year's budget go? It means so much more down the road and just empirically to a franchise that it's priceless. Championships truly are priceless. Yeah, your financial responsibility night.
Fiscal responsibility night. Tickets are double, and the owner's going to do really well. All concessions will be double. Can you imagine that? And they're going to hoist the flag. Fiscal responsibility. Crab sandwiches will now be $50 on fiscal responsibility night, because we're trying to generate as much revenue as possible.
Now, somebody on the Comcast business text line referring to the Joe Lacob soundbite that got him taxed or fined. The soundbite was about the luxury tax, and it got him fined $500,000. The fine is the 3rd largest in NBA history. The Nuggets and Knicks got in a brawl in 2006, and both teams got fined $500,000 or $500,000 in that moment. Because it was sort of in the shadow of Malice at the Palace, and they didn't want any fisticuffs on an NBA basketball court.
They're trying to lay down the law.
Yeah. Mark Cuban's been dinged $600,000 once. His lifetime fines are approaching $2.5 million. He's twice been hit with $500,000 fines for complaining about officials. The Timberwolves, as a team, not just as an owner, were fined $3.5 million in 2000 because they tried to circumvent the then existing CBA rules by signing a former #1 overall pick, Joe Smith, to a short, cheap contract to keep cap space open. And then they tried to game the system. The NBA was like, no, you cannot do that. So forget it. That's the biggest fine ever. And then Joe Lacob, again, $500,000. But somebody on the Comcast business text line said something that I think makes an awful lot of sense. Let's say Lacob speaks this ridiculous tax of players that you drafted and develop yourself. Like, let's say he actually speaks that into existence, and 3 years from now, there's a change there or something like that.
He needs a refund.
It's not just that. How smart is Joe to spend $500,000 today to save himself $350 million 3 years from now?
Right. He's trying to publicly advance this conversation because he knows it's going nowhere without it.
And he says this, and this is where Grandy, you get the extra nickel this week. We carry an extra nickel to the show every week, and then whoever does the best gets the extra nickel. It's extra nickel week for Grandy, because that Joe Lacob soundbite that we played yesterday from the Andre Iguodala Point Forward podcast, he backed it up from where the sound that we had. He backed it up about 5 seconds. So you got a little bit more of the preamble where Lacob basically insinuates, this is probably going to cost my money, but I hope it hits the right people's ears. Listen to this soundbite now from Lacob.
what I consider to be very unfair, and I'm going to say it on this podcast, and I hope it gets back to whoever is listening. And obviously, it's self-serving for me to say this, but I think it's a very unfair system because.
And this is where I picked it up yesterday.
Top eight players are all drafted by this team.
Okay, so I'm going to get back into that in just a second, but did you hear the beginning of that where he's basically saying, I'm going to say this, and I hope it hits the right ears, and I'm going to let it play this whole way through in case you missed any of this yesterday, but the preamble now makes a little bit more sense, all things considered.
What I consider to be very unfair, and I'm going to say it on this podcast, and I hope it gets back to whoever is listening. And obviously, it's self-serving for me to say this, but I think it's a very unfair system because our team is built by top eight players are all drafted by this team. And we have 3 other guys that were undrafted and we found and developed in Santa Cruz. We have not one free agent that isn't a minimum.
Right.
Not one. All minimums, the guys we brought in this year. Yeah. So the only guy that you could make a case for us outspending the competition, not being fair, is that we turned the Durant leaving into one guy that turned into Wiggins, and that worked out great. But they all criticized us for doing it and said we was overpaid. You did a bad deal. So
there you go.
I mean, can't have it both ways.
Right. The one time we really played the system smartly is when we flipped Kevin Durant for D'Angelo Russell, who was on top of Mount Nobody Wants Him, and then flipped him to Minnesota for the king of Nobody Wants Him at that price, Andrew Wiggins.
And a pick, which wound up being Kuminga.
And what I've also been saying is, remember, this is a team that just a few years ago won 15 basketball games. In the year where they won 15 basketball games, they were in the tax about $200 million plus in that moment. Anybody
with no fans showing up at a brand new arena?
Did anybody complain about the Warriors getting around the tax or how much they were spending when they won 15 games? No one. No, it's only because they've won again,
right,
that people are complaining. So I've been saying that Joe Lacob should have walked into that governor's meeting wearing sunglasses, like board shorts, maybe like a wife beater with a mustard stain on it and flip-flops, and put his feet up and said, all of you should seriously kiss my ass. You're welcome. I don't want to hear a word from any of you complaining about my spending. I bring you attention. My team, my franchise is the most interesting topic this sport has. You're welcome. All of you.
Not to mention, Damon, that the most of this media comes from the Northeast. And I don't remember anybody in the Northeast once upon a time when the Yankees had won the World Series and somehow took Roger Clemens away from Toronto, and they added Roger Clemens to an already World Series championship club. I don't remember anybody going into some little ESPN soliloquy about how unfair that was.
I remember Susie Wahlberg. Oh my God, Roger Clemens! Roger Clemens is here in the booth. He's in George Steinbrenner's box.
Oh my God, it's Roger Clemens! It's Roger Clemens. That was Susan Waldman, by the way.
Susan Waldman. What did I say? What did I call her?
I'm not sure.
It's Susan Waldman.
Susan Waldman, who's a tough lady and a pioneer. And
she's great.
I admire her, but
Roger Clemens.
She had seen God. I mean, it was like Roger Clemens has just walked into George Steinbrenner's box. It's like, oh my God,
that's a great.
Relax.
Moment. Yeah. Well, it didn't work out very well for Roger, though. At the end, I don't even think he pitched well.
He threw a bat at Piazza in the World Series in his roid rage.
Right.
Remember that?
No problems there.
Oh, they won, though.
Right.
And they won.
That's right. Yeah, they won a lot. Yankees could do steroids. Nobody complained. Anybody else? Boy, oh boy, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, look, Joe Lacob is totally getting screwed by a league that should just be thanking him. And to think that is the third largest fine. Did that soundbite to you sound like it should have generated the third largest fine? By the way, Iguodala realizes that happened on his podcast. He said, sorry.
I just came up here to promote my podcast, Point Forward, with my man, Evan Turner. We just got Joe Lacob fined $500,000. I'm sorry, Joe.
That was during the ESPYs. During the ESPYs.
Andre's got enough. He could probably cut the check and write Joe the big check. I doubt he will, but he could.
By the way, Curry, he really did a good job. I mean, I've listened to quite a bit of the sound, and we'll get to it. I know we got Bill Shaiken of the LA Times coming up, talking a little baseball in just a moment. But since we're on the topic of podcasts, here is Curry using a moment to brag about the kind of year that he had. And then, of course, he's got a little zinger in there.
I don't get the opportunity to brag very often, so y'all just allow me to do that for a second. The Warriors, we won our 4th championship in 7 years. I got that little trophy everybody said I needed. I can't remember what it's called. Got to break the NBA all-time career three-point record, which is special. So an amazing year, but somehow, I'm still getting overshadowed by Draymond Green's podcast. I can't even be mad at it. It's a great show. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. It's great.
There you go. Smash that subscribe button. Steph Curry on ABC. This is the first time the ESPYs were actually on network TV. I remember them usually being on ESPN.
Right. I do.
Threw them over to the mothership.
Yeah, I thought maybe last time it was on ABC. Maybe this is the second time. That would be my guess.
Here's another good zinger from Curry.
We're in the 4th quarter of the show, which means all the LA fans are finally here. Appreciate y'all showing up. It also means all the Miami fans are already gone. So thanks for coming.
Some other really good stuff from Steph Curry. Look, here's the thing. You know who Steph Curry had last night? A really good writing team. And did you notice that I saw some clips on my Twitter timeline? His opening monologue. I don't know if he had the drink in hand the entire show, but he walked around that stage like Dean Martin. He had a cocktail in his hand.
Right.
And I'm wondering, did he really have some whiskey or bourbon in there? Was that brown liquor? Half the time, Dino would act like he was in the bag. Now it's a glass of apple juice.
Right.
Yeah. So I wonder if Steph's sipping on apple juice or apple cider, or if he really was walking around stage hosting a show, drinking a Manhattan, which if he was, I'm just going to golf clap the hell out of that. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm a broadcaster for real. What do you also play basketball? Believe it or not, I don't. I only am a broadcaster. I'm also a huge brown liquor guy. And if you gave me an opening monologue on ABC as a professional broadcaster, I'd leave the cocktail in the green room. I would not bring it out there. I would not be getting intoxicated at all on ABC. So I really wonder if
Johnny Walker back in the green room for you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a little sip here, just take the edge off. We don't want to be going out there tight. We want to be a little loose, but we don't want to continue to finish said Manhattan unless we're on an 11-second delay. Forget just 7. But man, if Steph was really out there with the sauce, I mean, wow. What can he do?
I'm always impressed when somebody who does something exceptionally well can go into another realm and do it really well. Now think about this guy. This guy's doing it 3 times because he'll step on the golf course with golfers and he won't embarrass himself, like pro golfers. And then he can host an event like that. Now, granted,
did you see the eagle that he had
on it?
Did you see the eagle that he had up?
Yeah, he was dancing, going crazy.
All he does is hit threes, Larry.
No, but I mean, think about the amazing. I'll go as far as to say this. I think Steph Curry is the greatest hand-eye coordination athlete I've ever seen by far.
He might be.
By far. Hand-eye coordination. Because, I mean, look what he can do with a golf club. I bet you he could probably hit a baseball.
We got so much to get into today. We got Bill Shaiken, though, of the LA Times to get going on what he thought, obviously, of the All-Star game in his own backyard. I'm sure he was there. And we're going to have ourselves little Giants and Dodgers coming up from tonight. So we're going to talk about that with Bill Shaiken of the LA Times next year on 95.7 The Game. Damon and Ratto, Larry Krueger in for Ray. Brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service bank and no compromises.
There is value on the pitch. I'm Joe Gillier here to help you beat the books with BetQL as baseball gears up for the second half of the season. The BetQL model has plenty of actionable data available in other sports. BetQL has a handful of 5-star and 4-star MLS plays for this weekend's action. Sporting KC plus 211 on a 3-way money line is a 5-star.
Feel a little more at home.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back to Damon and Ratto. If you're looking for more Giants talk, you can check out the podcast Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys, our very own Mark Willard and Joe Shasky. You'll check it out on the Odyssey app, wherever you listen to your podcasts. No Ray Ratto today. Larry Krueger in for Ray. We're very happy to welcome in Bill Shaiken of the LA Times. He's all over everything Doyers, and obviously second half gets underway. It's really the last third, almost more than it's the second half. They push back the All-Star game so late. The All-Star game was in Bill's backyard as well, so it's a great time to catch up with them. Bill, thank you very much for your time. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
And we're excellent. Thank you very, very much. So the Giants are just jumping right into the fire here. 8 of their next 15 are against the first place Dodgers, and I don't even know how many they would need straight up to catch the Dodgers, for goodness sakes, because it just looks like LA is going to be winning 7 or 8 out of 10 every single time they play about 10 games. They were built to be a monster, and so far, Bill, they have delivered on that build.
Yeah, you looked up at the standings in the middle of June, and the Padres were basically tied. The Giants were right there, I think 2 or 3 games back, and all of a sudden you look up at the All-Star break, and there's a 10-game lead the Dodgers have over the Padres, and of course then the Giants are even behind that at 12.5. But this is the year of 3 wild card teams, and Giants are half a game out of a playoff spot.
How did Dave Roberts guarantee? Because I think a lot of people forget, but he guaranteed the Dodgers would win it all this year, didn't he, in spring training? How did that play down there?
Honestly, it's been a long time since Joe Namath guaranteed wins, and teams don't really have bulletin boards with newspaper clippings up on their walls because nobody reads newspapers in print anymore. So, you know what? He says what he said. I mean, look, is there anybody that expected the Dodgers to have a bad team for $300 million? Probably not. So this is what they expected. They've been in the playoffs every year since 2013. This year will make it 10 in a row. And once you get in the playoffs, as Mr. Billy Beane has told everybody, it's a crapshoot.
It's Bill Shaiken of the LA Times. It's going to be a parade of TBDs after Mitch White gets the start tonight against Carlos Rodon. Of all the Dodgers and all the Dodgers pitchers, I know the least about Mitch White, who's 1-2 with a 4.20. What have I missed? Who is he?
He's really a function of what's become, and I say this with much respect, a development machine. I think everybody talks about the Dodgers payroll. Look, they have a high payroll. They can do a lot. But if you look at the lineup that started most often for the Dodgers this year, it's 3 guys who make a lot of money that they acquired from other teams. It's 3 guys that they brought in on minor league deals, and it's 3 guys they drafted. And if you look on the pitching side, Mitch White's an example of that. Bay Area guy, went to Bellarmine Prep in Santa Clara. The Dodgers drafted him 6 years ago, and because the Dodgers are the Dodgers, they can bring in qualified, experienced free agent pitchers, even if they're not the top of the market guys like a Garrett Cole or this year a Max Scherzer. They just mix in their own guys. They don't need you to perform well. They hope you do, but you're probably going to go up and down for a while, right? They got options. They like using them. Mitch White, I think, was optioned close to 10 times last year. He can only do 5 this year. But he gets the job done and gets some experience. And look, if it works out, great. If not, he's probably just there until they need the roster spot anyway.
Obviously you were there for the All-Star game. I'd like your impressions of the All-Star game. It always plays so much better in person than I think it does on TV. It was kind of a snooze fest on TV, to be totally honest with you. You can tell us how you thought about it, but there's no doubt that the Juan Soto conversation hijacked kind of all the proceedings in so many different ways. And one of the teams that Soto is, of course, linked to is the deep prospect and deep-pocketed Dodgers. Bill, do you think that there is a chance Juan Soto is a Los Angeles Dodger before the trade deadline?
Sure. You can't rule the Dodgers out on anything. And frankly, the people that run the Dodgers like it when everybody thinks they're on something, whether they are or not, because it gets other people worried a little bit about what the Dodgers are up to. But if you say, well, boy, the Dodgers are already spending all this money, and how would they be able? Because if you get Juan Soto, you obviously want to keep him for the long term if you can. So how would the Dodgers afford that? But if you really look at the Dodgers contract structure, other than Mookie Betts, there's really not a lot on the long-term payroll. So sure, you could afford Juan Soto for the long term. That's the benefit of having their strong development system. Would they take a look at him? Of course they would. But the other thing to remember is if you get Juan Soto now, you've got him for 3 pennant races. Even if you don't keep him, that's still a pretty good deal.
No doubt, no doubt. You know what's scary is how good the LA's been and how many guys are out. I mean, they're getting Walker Buehler back. They're getting Dustin May back, Trinan, Heaney, Duffy, Canley. They're getting all these guys back. So they don't really need to trade for any pitching, I would imagine. And when do you expect those guys to be back? And I mean, that's an awful lot of pitching coming off the injured list.
I think the Dodgers need relief pitching more than anything, and I think they'll probably be much more likely to do that than to go get Juan Soto, although I'm sure they'd be happy to do that because, frankly, who wouldn't? But Trinan, we don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back. He's been out, months now. It hasn't been just a 10-day stint on the IL. Craig Kimbrell at closer has been erratic at best. So I think late inning relief is an area the Dodgers would want to improve. And you're right. They've got, Dustin May and Walker Buehler coming back in the starting rotation, which could give them an option to move guys that are starting now into the bullpen. But I think relief pitching is an area of need. Juan Soto certainly would be an area of want.
Bill Shaiken with the Los Angeles Times. So, the Dodgers are impressive. There's no doubt about it. And they got the kind of problems that other teams would love to have. It's curious, though, when a guy, and I know, it's there one day, gone the next in baseball, but when someone looked so good as Cody Bellinger looked early in his career, and I know a lot of his last year was forgiven with a big, big postseason home run, what happened in your mind to Cody Bellinger? How did he go from such a good hitter to borderline forgot how to hit?
He's really struggled to make the adjustments that most players need to make. Certainly he's needed to make them. And essentially the pitchers have figured out what his weak spot is, and he hasn't been able to overcome that. He has in spurts, and you mentioned, late last year he did. He adjusts his stances a lot, which is a sign of a guy who's searching more than a guy who knows he had it. But again, the Dodgers being the Dodgers, they can say, look, we love his glove in center field. It's a really elite glove. The phrase a lot of baseball people like to use is it's a difference maker. So most teams would not have a guy that's, making the amount of money Cody Bellinger is making, $17 million this year, and say, well, he's just a glove guy. But guess where Cody Bellinger's batting tonight against the Giants?
Where? Leadoff?
Ninth.
Oh, ninth. Bury him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Bill, what absolutely floored me, and, is that the Dodgers have gotten incredible numbers out of Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson. And when Giants fans remember Tyler Anderson, Tyler Anderson's 10-1. Gonsolin's 11-0. They're 21-1 combined. That's incredible.
Yeah, as much as, again, people like to talk about the money, it's not just that the Dodgers spend money on players, although, no doubt they do. They also spend money on player development. They spend money on analytics. This doesn't make them unique, of course, but Anderson is not the first guy to come into the Dodgers, have his pitch mix changed a little bit because of what the guys in analytics see. Don't throw this pitch as much. This pitch, look, you get better results with it. Maybe the pitching coaches tinker with your grip a little bit. But there's a long list of guys that see those results. And it isn't just the guys that are going to make $300 million that want to sign with the Dodgers. It's a lot of guys who are in the Tyler Anderson phase of their careers that maybe they're not going to be long-term Dodgers. Maybe they're not going to have a job anywhere. But if they can sign with the Dodgers for a year and get right, maybe they stay here. Maybe they go somewhere else and make a lot of money. And, the Dodgers are just fine with that because they've gotten the performance.
Bill Shaiken of the LA Times, let's say it's up to you to write the 1 or 2 sentences, which will be put in the time capsule to describe this year's All-Star game at Dodger Stadium. How would you go ahead and sum up what you saw?
I would use the word regal. We spend so much time talking about what's happening today, or depending on how you like the game today, what's not happening. But there's a reference frame in terms of historical perspective that no other sport has, because there's been no other major sport in America that's lasted as long as baseball. And for the Dodgers to put on an all-star game where you have images of Jackie Robinson on the scoreboard and Mookie Betts leading a cheer of happy 100th birthday to Rachel Robinson, and Clayton Kershaw, who's been so good for so long here. I don't think people realize he's been pitching 15 years. For him to have a chance to start an all-star game in front of the home crowd, I think those are the moments that people will remember. And then they went on and played the game. So if you were there in person, you'll certainly remember that day for a long time.
Bill, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time today.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Bill.
Bill Shaiken of the LA Times here on 95.7 The Game. And we are getting awfully close. And let me welcome everyone to your 4 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station.
Should the Giants give up the farm system for Juan Soto? Should the Giants give up the farm system? We were talking, and I always appreciate when Lucas throws a question in my ear. He's like, ask him who he thinks has got a better chance to land Juan Soto, the Dodgers or the Giants. You know the answer to that question. We all know the answer to that question.
I should have said more likely.
I don't want to hear the answer to that. I don't want to hear the answer to that.
You don't want to hear the answer, but you know the answer to that.
I do.
You know the answer to that.
Amazingly, when these teams got together last time, Giants swept them. Giants swept the Dodgers in that 3-game series here in San Francisco. Since that point, LA's gone 23-7, and the Giants have gone 15-17 and fallen off. Amazing at that point. 3-game sweep, really the Giants maybe high water mark. People were feeling good. Since then, they're sub 500, and LA is just rolling.
They've just been so streaky. I mean, all year long, it's a 4-game winning streak, followed by a 5-game losing streak, followed by a nice, 7-3 stretch, followed by, now you lost 5 in a row again. Like, it's just a streaky team that's either all the way on or all the way off. And I'll tell you, as they look, and I'm sure are doing the in-house math on what it would take to get a guy like Juan Soto. Sometimes you got to look to the past to figure out what the present or the future might be. This was a good pull by Grandy, who said, you remember when the Giants almost traded for Giancarlo Stanton back in 2017? At least
I do.
They said, that they did. And Craig Mish, who covers the Marlins very well, he reported that the Giants sent this offer. So Giancarlo Stanton Juan Soto's better than Giancarlo Stanton.
Younger, healthier,
right.
Better, higher average.
That is the closest we could get to a level of, all right, man, go ahead and throw what you need to throw into the trade to get that trade done. So here's the trade that didn't get the Giants Giancarlo Stanton.
Now, did the Giants not offer this trade? Or did the Giants offer this trade and this trade was rejected?
Craig Mish, who covers the Marlins, reported that the Giants sent this offer to Miami for Giancarlo Stanton. Christian Arroyo, who was traded to Tampa Bay for Evan Longoria when it was all said and done, bounced around since. He's played 42 games for Boston this year. He's hitting .224. But at the time, was like number 1 with a bullet.
Can't trade Christian Arroyo.
Can't give up Christian Arroyo. Tyler Beatty, he appeared in 33 games for the Giants. He had a 5.39 ERA in those games. The Giants designated for assignment in May of this year, and since then he's appeared in 15 games for the Pirates with a pretty good 3.04 ERA. So Tyler Beatty, the one who got away. So the other 2 guys involved in that trade, proposal anyways, Chris Shaw, who has 72 career at-bats in the majors with a 153 average. He's now playing for the Kentucky Wild Health Genomes, and an Atlantic League Independent League guy, Chris Shaw.
That's as low as Pro Ball gets, Independent League.
Right. And don't call him Helio, Elliot Ramos. This is how long this guy has been in the Giants minor league system. This guy has played 7 major league games this year. He had 2 hits and 13 at-bats. But Elio Ramos was proposed in this as a prospect who was honestly more of a prospect the less you knew about him back then than he might be right now, to be totally honest with you. But those are 4 prospects who were the Giants' top 4 prospects at the time. And, all of them are
nothing.
I mean, I didn't want to say bums, but they're bums, essentially. There's nothing there.
They're not impact players in the big leagues.
Nothing.
So the message you get out of that is hawk all your prospects, because prospects are prospects and nobody really knows.
Right. So, Luciano, like you said, got blue chipper written all over him. There is no sport where the number 1 prospect in your pipeline has a more of a chance to fail miserably than Major League Baseball. All the time. This guy, top prospect, does nothing. Absolutely. It's happened to the Yankees. It's happened to every single franchise. That doesn't happen nearly as often in any other sport. It doesn't.
There are not a lot of Markel Fultzes, guys who go 1-1 and then wind up being nothing. Generally, if you go 1-1 in the NBA, you may not be a superstar, but you're going to be damn good. But yeah, I mean, that's proof right there that as long as it's prospects, I mean, take the bird in hand. Take the bird in hand. MLB Networks or MLB.com's got this trade for Soto: Luciano, Kyle Harrison, Luis Matos, that same Elliot Ramos, and Logan Webb. And I threw it out on Twitter today. Would you make that trade that MLB.com is throwing out? And I would say there were people who were like, hell yeah, I'd make that trade. Many people were like, I won't trade Webb. Webb's the difference for me. Webb's where I draw the line.
Hey, Webb is a guy who you clearly would want to keep in-house. He is one of the 2 best pitchers, and he's on his way to establishing himself as a bona fide top-flight major league starter. If he hasn't already done that. There's a lot of reasons. I will drive him to SFO, Larry.
You're saying move him.
For a guy who plays every day?
Who's going to start? That's the thing. If you move Harrison and you move Webb,
I'm opening up with a Trevor Rosenthal bullpen game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like seriously,
Sam Long.
Yeah, I will figure that out.
So
Juan
you would
Soto.
include Webb, huh?
Yes. For a pitcher, dude, nothing comes and goes overnight faster than pitching.
I know.
Nothing.
This is an established guy. This is not a question mark. This is an answer. This is not a guy like, well, I don't know where we really got there with Webb. No, you know what you got with Webb. So this, to me, that seems like a high price, because you're trading.
It is a high price.
Your number 1 prospect, your number 2 prospect, your number 3 prospect, Elliot Ramos, and your ace.
Unless he gets involved in a car accident, a future Hall of Famer.
3 years. You don't have a guaranteed. Now, if you could get trade made with an extension,
let me.
You're going to make an addendum.
Addendum this.
I knew you were going to. I saw the addendum coming.
You saw there was the. If you're watching along on YouTube, this is definitely the international sign for I'd like to. The only way Logan Webb is included is if we are doing a long-term deal, and there isn't a whole bunch of. And Scott Boras wants to bring his little piggies to market in free agency 3 years from now, and he's not going to do an extension. If there is no extension, there is no Logan Webb. And honestly, are the Giants in position to contend at all with Soto in the next 3 years? I don't know.
Well, I mean, yes, if baseball keeps adding wild card teams, I mean, the Giants right now are a game or something out of the 3rd wild card?
You would think.
They could make a trade for Soto, probably move Webb, and maybe contend for a playoff spot this year, despite trading away their ace. The other idea that somebody threw out, and I kind of like this one, is what about keeping Webb but trading Rodon for prospects, and then maybe flipping some of those prospects in the deal for Soto?
That's not at a price point I think the Nationals want to jump into, though. Now they're going to turn around and say you're taking Corbin Burns.
You mean Corbin? What's his name? Patrick Corbin.
I got my Corbin wrong.
And I would take Patrick Corbin. You know what? If I'm the Giants, I'd take Patrick Corbin. Heck, if the Dodgers can get their analytics people to make Tyler Anderson 10-1, the Giants analytics people might be able to pull something out of Corbin. Corbin's at least healthy. He's not missing starts. He's not Strasburg. He's not, I'm taking my $35 million and I'll check you out in 2025. He's made every start. He's just not doing it great. Now, if you took him out of the Nationals park and put him in the Giants park, would he be a serviceable, rotation piece? Possibly. But if I'm the Giants, looking at the lack of prospects they have and as much money as they have stacked up, I'm taking on Corbin for sure, because I want to make sure I want to lower that prospect cost as much as possible. So if I'm reading correctly and the Nationals want to include Patrick Corbin in any deal involving Soto, I bet you there's a handful of those 7 teams that Bob Nightingale is saying are already kicking the tires, probably won't take Corbin. So if that's a key, maybe the Giants could push in front of 4 or 5 teams just because they would be willing to take Corbin's ugly contract.
Luciano, Kyle Henderson, Luis Matos, Will Bednar, and you get this year's first and second rounders, Reggie Crawford and Carson Wisenhunt. So you get the minor league poo-poo platter. If you're the Nationals, are you interested?
Yes, I'm interested. Yes, that's a lot of pitching. I mean, you just basically, the Wisenhunt kid supposedly was going to be at number 1. You're getting an incredible 2-way talent in Reggie Crawford, albeit probably years and years away from being in the big leagues.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and you say, why would the Giants do this? A lot of people, the sentiment that I was getting today on Twitter was, hey, you know what? I really enjoy watching the prospects kind of percolate through the system, and I'm willing to be patient. Yeah, but look, the Giants need a Juan Soto in the worst way. Brandon Crawford quote today in the Chronicle, he said, part of our first half inconsistency is the inconsistency with our lineup. Hopefully we can get everyone healthy in the second half and take off. That's it. They score 12 runs on a Monday. They come back. They don't even get a hit through 6 innings on the very next game. They've got huge offensive inconsistency, and a guy like Soto would give them a huge shot in the arm, and maybe they could run off 10 of 12 or 15 of 17 like LA just did coming into the break.
To me, I just hope that they do the Soto deal only so Kapler can sit him or pinch hit for him with Austin Wins the very first time a lefty comes up.
There'll be a collective, no!
Can you imagine? So, let's say they did the Soto deal by the time this show's over today. They get him on an airplane out here, and Clayton Kershaw is starting Saturday for the Dodgers. And they're like,
here comes Austin Slater in the 7th.
We're going to hold off Soto until he can get a righty in there.
Or Soto hits 2 bombs in his first 2 at bats, and then Slater pinch hits in the 7th.
You got to bring in Slater at that point. Look, it's Soto is the kind of guy who I don't care how much the trade makes you bleed. You bleed to get a guy like that into your system. That's who he is, man. So I don't think the Giants are even going to be like in the ballpark in this trade when it's said and done. I really don't. This feels like
Why is that? Because you don't think they're offering what the ask may be?
There's that, and
or is it the money? Is the problem more the prospects or the money?
I think they're just gun shy. I think they're gun shy on a trigger this big to pull. I really do. I think that Farhan really, he pass on this. Aaron Judge in the offseason?
He's not leaving the Bronx. I mean, you got to remember this. The Yankees are different. It's like, nobody leaves the Yankees. I mean, you just don't. You don't leave the Yankees. The Yankees don't get outbid on players they want, especially future Hall of Famers. But I'll say this. I think the Giants need this move right now.
I dare you to do it, Sam. I triple dog dare you to get Juan Soto to San Francisco, and I really hope you do. I'll be surprised if they do. When we come on back, I want to turn our attention back to football because we've got Kyle Posey, the managing editor of Niners Nation, joining us at 4:30, and we have a list of things that need to go right for the 49ers to be a playoff team next year. We're going to get the list back out. We're going to have Posey on at 4:30. Kyle Posey joining us here on 95.7 The Game. And again, For best Giants content on 95.7 The Game, text the word Giants to 20357. You hit the subscribe button, and boom, it all goes to you.
Hi, this is George with Left Coast Buyers. We buy.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips. We express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Indeed, it's Damon and Ratto. Larry Krueger in for Ray this week, and we are going to have one of your pals here, Larry, coming up at 4:30. Kyle Posey, who I know joins you on your YouTube channel. He's the managing editor for Niners Nation, and I've heard you guys talk before. He knows the team.
He does.
He understands football, so it should be a really interesting conversation. I've never talked to him before. I'm looking forward to saying hello to see what he thinks are the mandatory steps that the San Francisco 49ers need to take to be a playoff team again. I mean, all the Trey Lance conversation has been we have gone over this field and tilled it as much as humanly possible. Although, before the show started, you brought up the notion that you're sort of rejecting a universe being unable, like if indeed Jimmy Garoppolo is on this team, you don't think it is the incredibly awkward situation is at times. I mean, I've set it up to be the first question I asked Steve Young about was how could that quarterback room exist with these two in it? And you don't see it being nearly as much of an issue as I do.
Well, I mean, I just think they can handle it. I think Trey and Jimmy get along. That's one. I think both of those guys have mental maturity. That's two. I think the locker room could handle it. I think Shanahan could handle it. I think the media would be a distraction every day, kind of talking about how the two quarterbacks did. But as long as there was good communication, I think it could be handled. Now, I don't know. That's what happens if Trey falters. What you don't want is the back and forth, because then a team never really knows who their leader is. But I think this team could handle it if that's what had to happen.
There is no, at least as far as we can tell, subversive element to the 49ers locker room. No matter what has happened, no matter what kind of streak they're on, no matter who's hurt, no matter how much of a shot they really got today, the one compliment that I can give all the Kyle Shanahan teams, whether they've gone to the Super Bowl or had the third pick in the draft, no matter what, since Kyle has shown up, there hasn't been an instant where I thought they're not prepared to play and they aren't playing hard. Not once. Not one. They got their pants dropped a little bit when the Miami Dolphins and Philadelphia Eagles came in. Like those are maybe the two worst games of the Shanahan era. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. Yeah. It wasn't for a lack of trying.
The Miami game was a corner that they had signed on a Wednesday that had to start on Sunday. Right. And Ryan Fitzpatrick torched him. Just went at him. Brian Allen, I think his name was.
Yeah, it was bad. Like it was bad. We understand why it was bad. It's never been a question of effort. Like you can see football teams, and look, Raiders fans, I think you're going to have a good year this year. I'm very happy for your big bright future. I've seen the Raiders quit on football games an awful lot. As a matter of fact, when the 49ers had him at Levi's, the Raiders quit on that game. I mean, there are some teams that have a culture of, what's that score? We're done playing hard for the day. Might as well get the backups in, coach. Take me out. The Niners don't have that under Kyle Shanahan. They got other problems, though. And so problems that need to be solved to really be back in the playoffs. I know we had a list that we put together real quickly. We each gave 3 yesterday. I want to catch everyone up through my 3, then your 3, then we'll get back into the list. Mine started with a defensive line that is so overwhelming. Like Good Morning Football is starting Monday morning segments about how that could be the single best unit in football. A defensive line that scares other football teams. I think it's the Niners calling card. It is this team's identity. It's where they've invested so much of their draft. This defensive line has to be scary. Charvarius Ward. His presence needs to be so steady that you're not worried about one side of cornerback play pretty much throughout the year. Then Mosley, Lenore, Ambry Thomas, a healthy Jason Verrett are all available to play other corner, backup Ward, and all the slot work that you need. That's where I just him bringing a steady everyday presence, every week presence to a cornerback spot, I think goes a long way. And then I told you, and I know you said that they've got such a deep backfield, you don't really care whose the name is. I do. I love Elijah Mitchell, and I hope that his sophomore season totally trumps his freshman year. He had 963 yards from scrimmage rushing last year. I would love to see him north of 1,200 with more than 5 touchdowns. This running game makes this offense go. I think Elijah Mitchell having a monster year goes a long way to bringing this franchise back. I told you about those yesterday. If you weren't listening, there you go. There's my recap. Your recap of your 3, please.
Well, yeah, I went with Javon Kinlaw. I mean, he's got to stop the run. I mean, that to me is the big one. I think the 49er D-line is not quite as good, to be honest, as it was a year ago. They lost Kentavious Street. They lost DJ Jones. Those guys are key. Anyway, there's no way around that.
Yeah, but Keuchel can coach him up, man. He knows what he's doing.
He can, no question. But Kinlaw is unique.
And they just signed someone today.
Yesterday they signed Robert Nkemdiche, who's a former, he was great at Ole Miss, and then basically got drafted in the first round by Arizona, and really has had problems. He was in Seattle last year, but Nkemdiche is a talent. And if you go watch him from Ole Miss, you'll see number 5 rolling around out there making play after play. He's mobile and he's strong. He's a 300-pounder.
Get some real talent around you and get coached up by Keuchel. He could be a guy that pops.
Yeah, he could be this year's Arden Key. I mean, different body type, different player, but yeah, young player with talent now coming into a system with a great coach and great surrounding cast. It may click. So Kinlaw's got to be the guy. He's got to be they got to shut down the inside run, and he's really the key. And then I said Hufanga and Jimmy Ward. There's 34 starts in 17 games for the free and strong safety. That duo of Hufanga and Jimmy Ward have to start, I would say, 30 of the 34 games, 34 starts. 30 have to go to those two guys. Why? Because the backups at safety, Tarvarius Moore, George Odom, and then you got undrafted free agents. So
it's just a big scoop of unknown.
Yeah, I mean, they may, if the kid Jesse Bates, the third from Cincinnati, who's holding out, if he gets traded, I could see the 49ers bidding on him just because they're so thin at safety. So that's one. And then I said, I believe one of the young defensive ends. So Ebukam, Drake Jackson, Amenahue, Kamoko Toure, Jordan Willis. There's 5 of them. One of them has got to emerge opposite Nick Bosa, because you got Bosa and you got really good tackles. But if you leave the back door open, the quarterback slides out the side door and that's it. And we saw it with Russell Wilson. So you need that other defensive end to pin that quarterback in the pocket, because Bosa will beat his man. So somebody's got to step up, and hopefully it'll be Drake Jackson, because they just invested a pretty high pick in him. But really, any of those guys, Ebukam, I think, has got a great motor. Menahue's a big-bodied guy, 270, 275, real strong. Kamoko Toure comes over from the Colts, and Jordan Willis, we saw him make an impact play on special teams, but he was great at K-State. He runs in the 4.5s. He's about 270 pounds. So they got 5 good defensive ends there. One of them has to emerge as better than just good.
And your third?
That was the third, I think. Kinlaw, the young DNs.
Oh, Kinlaw safety play and the DNs. All right. So back to the lists for what we didn't talk about yesterday. Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey has been a B- since he was drafted. Maybe he had a B+ year, but the rest of it's gone, and pass blocking has been an issue for a guy who might have came in a little too light. Mike McGlinchey missed an awful lot of last year's service time due to injury. He's been, high reviews on his rehab and him working himself back and him coming in heavier and stronger this year than ever before. I really hope so, because this team is going to have questions at both guard spots and at center. So, at least have a couple of tackles who get the job done, especially when for the first time in a long time, you think that you're going to have a quarterback that, should he be able to get around a corner, could maybe pick up some free yardage in the flat just with his legs. So a really good right side that McGlinchey just sort of takes care of, because your left side's taken care of. just makes this whole thing click an awful lot more. And, Damon, thank you very much. Offensive line play is important in a football team that to go somewhere. Of course it is. But seriously, McGlinchey specifically, because I see the promise, and I also see why a lot of people are disappointed.
He's good as a run blocker. He struggles against speed.
He's halfway.
Speed rushers.
He's halfway there.
Yeah. And that's when he's healthy. Then he had the quad injury, and we thought it was a torn quad, but he actually clarified this week that it's really not, wasn't a full-blown torn quad off the bone. It was a torn tendon. So his rehab's been a little bit less involved than potentially it could have been. But the real need, I agree with you on this one. The real need is there because there's no third tackle on this team. Obviously Trent Williams is your starter at left. McGlinchey's a starter at right. Right now they've got Colton McKivitz as the 2 backup left tackle and Nick Zakel, who's a 6th-round pick out of Fordham at right tackle, who played like guard and center.
Right, Justin School's gone.
You get Justin
School's there, but he's
there, but he was coming off an injury, so they don't really have like a really strong third tackle. So they need I agree with you. They need their tackles to be the anchor points of their O-line this year.
And one more name just for you, because it's year 4, and we saw a big leap in year 3. And if he could take another significant step forward, Azeez Al-Shaair, I think, is a really good football player who's got potential to become a great football player, especially if Fred Ward really starts, anchoring his spot again and really returning to the best of Fred Ward.
Fred Warner, you were talking about.
I'm sorry. Yes, Fred Warner. And Azeez Al-Shaair, though, it's year 4, big leap in year 3, 102 tackles in 13 games, 2 sacks and interception. He plays the run really well. Keep on coming, kid, because, you, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, like all of a sudden, those 3 guys play up to their potential. Not only could you have a strong defensive line, but a linebacking core that's just no joke.
Yeah. And Azeez was not out there for the minicamp. And there's 2 kinds of speeds that you're looking at for the guys who aren't practicing, because they're usually on the side working out. There's the I'm not into this. And then there's the guy who's got just that look like I have to get back on the field. And Azeez had that secondary, he was the latter. He had that look like I will not miss a down. This guy was a great player in college. He was just hurt. I think the Niners are the best linebackers in the league. I think all 3 of those guys have all pro potential. Azeez Al-Shaair might be their most talented linebacker. I know Fred Warner gets the acclaim and Greenlaw's stud.
You're saying this is a Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis situation?
Yes. Al-Shaair takes a backseat to no one. I mean, he knows the scheme. He shows up in an angry mood. He hits, he runs, he's physical. He'll play the run in his face. He'll play the run away from him. He's got pursuit ability. Yeah, Al-Shaair is a monster in the making.
Before we get to Kyle Posey, the managing editor for Niners Nation, give me one more of yours.
To me, the young corners, they got a lot of 1st and 2nd year corners. Samuel Womack's a rookie out of Toledo. Diamador Lenore, 2nd-year guy out of Oregon. Ambry Thomas, 2nd-year guy out of Michigan. And then they got Tariq Castro Fields as a rookie from Penn State. And they got a kid from UCLA named Quantrez Knight. One of those young 1st or 2nd-year corners has to, maybe 1 or 2, has to step up and play well. So, there's a lot of 3 and 4 wides in the NFL, and that 4th and 5th corner on your roster gets a lot of run. Those guys are almost like starters. You got to have depth at corner, and they got some depth there, but they're all young. Somebody's got to emerge in this camp.
We're about to have a deeper 49ers conversation. Kyle Posey, the managing editor of Niners Nation. Larry, I know that you and he go back at least a couple of YouTube hits. Kyle, I've never had the chance to talk to you before, so welcome to Damon and Ratto with Larry in today. Really appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm used to staring at Larry right now.
And that's a bad thing.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll pick up that therapy bill. Just send it on over. But, Kyle, we were just kind of coming up with our lists of, things that must click for the 49ers to be a playoff team once again. And we wanted to stay away from sort of the obvious stuff, Trey Lance making a real splashy kind of, performance this year as the Niners' first quarterback. And, Deebo Samuel goes without saying. George Kittle, catch the football, be a great tight end. That goes without saying. Getting a bit more granular, what are the things that you think that fans should start looking for very early on in the season as signs as this year could be a playoff year?
It's got to be the three up front, right? So they're going to break in a new center. They're breaking in a new left guard, and they might be breaking in a new right guard, all while breaking in the first-year starting quarterback. So we're assuming that Trey Lance is going to be good, which is fair, just naturally because, Kyle Shanahan, offensive quarterback, generally tends to look good. But everything's going to be brand new in front of him. And if we're looking and Trey Lance is running for his life at the beginning of the season, well, that's not just going to magically get better. So I think there should be a lot of focus going on what's happening in front of him.
Yeah, Aaron Banks, left guard. Jake Brendel is there. They say they're confident coming out of the minicamp that he'll be the center, and then Daniel Brunskill possibly at right guard. Kyle, do you see any of the young O-linemen? They drafted, 3 or 4 guys. They signed a couple guys after the draft. Do you see any of the young O-linemen or any O-linemen besides those 3 guys, maybe giving Banks or Brendel or Brunskill a run for their money as the starter?
I think this is Banks' job to lose. Like, he's pretty much cemented there in left guard, second-round pick. Didn't really address anything in free agency behind him. So I think he's there. But as far as the other guys go, it wouldn't be surprising to me to see more beat out Daniel Brunskill, or not even beat out Daniel Brunskill, because I'm not so sure. Like, me and you have spoken about this. The Brendel love came out of nowhere.
Right.
This is a guy who hasn't really played in a couple of years, and all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that he's going to be this, let's say, 17-game starter without any hiccups. So I'm not so sure that's going to be the case. So I would say I would believe the team in Brendel if they hadn't brought in Donovan West, Jason Poe, and also drafted 2 offensive linemen. So my answer would be Jalen Moore. I think that his athleticism, his strength, and just having another year in the system, like, I'd be surprised if he didn't get playing time. And I'm not sure if he starts right away, but I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field this year.
Kyle Posey of Niners Nation here on 95.7 The Game. Brandon Aiyuk had such a weird sophomore season. It looked like he was in the doghouse and getting frozen out, basically, of the game plan early on. He came on strong, though, at the end. And I really think that Brandon Aiyuk's got an awful lot of talent. I know so much of the offseason conversation's been about Deebo. What kind of a year do you think Brandon Aiyuk is going to have in year 3, which is always either a leap forward or a you are who you are year usually for a wide receiver?
I agree 100%. I think we're going to find out who Brandon Aiyuk is. So previously, there was the excuse that Jimmy wasn't giving the ball. He's not going to have that this year. Obviously, he was in the doghouse because he wasn't blocking, or he wasn't taking, I think, the whole game of football seriously, or as seriously as he should. But in training camp last year, like, he was the guy. He was the guy beating everybody, whether it was joint practice with the Chargers or just lighting up the 49ers DBs. It seemed like he was going to be the 1,000-yard receiver on the team. But I think that's where he goes this year. I think it is finally time where he does take the leap. There's going to be so much attention given to everybody else, whether it's Kittle, whether it's Deebo, or just the running game in general. I think it's going to leave a lot of one-on-one opportunities for Aiyuk. And finally, he strings together those games where it's 60, 75, 85 and up instead of, like last year. He had games where he was kind of an afterthought. Like against the Colts, he had 1 reception for 6 yards. He had multiple games where he only had 1 reception. And that's not a guy, remember, they traded up in the first round for him. So he clearly has the talent. It's just about, being consistent. And I think that starts with getting him the ball early.
I think Brad Graham had this story first, but the 49ers signed Robert Nkemdiche, the former first-round pick. He played at Ole Miss, and he's got a lot of talent. Everybody's always said that. But he also kind of plays the same spot as Kinlaw. What was your read on that addition? Is he just a camp body, or do you think he's more than that? And do you think this is a statement about maybe how unsure they are about what they're getting out of Kinlaw?
So my initial reaction was, like, why would it be a camp body when they have like 11 dudes who can play? They are insanely deep at defensive line. So my reaction was, whoa, maybe Kinlaw isn't fully healthy. And it might not just be Kinlaw. It could be one of the other guys who are, under the radar, second or third team, who might not be ready yet. But, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to say that they know they can turn essentially anybody with Chris Kosir into a productive defensive lineman. Like, look at Arden Key last year. He was an afterthought in the league, and all of a sudden he's getting I think he had like 7 sacks or whatever it was last year. So, I'm sure they trust their scouting staff, and maybe they saw enough in Nkemdiche last year. But I'm going with the health reasons. Somebody has to be banged up, and we're going to find out soon enough.
Okay, so we got about 3 minutes left. Spend as much time on this as you want or not. An alien lands, and you have to explain what's going on between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. How would you explain it?
I love where we're headed here. So what I would say, and do you mean as far as like what their dichotomy is, like what their relationship is?
Any way you want to take this, you got to talk to the alien, not me.
Blank slate.
Here's what I would say. For the longest, the head coach of this team thought that he could get by with a middling quarterback. It took them, as always for any coach, it took them essentially coming up short, just like they did with special teams last year. It took them coming up short to address the quarterback position. And unfortunately, he had to do this by mortgaging not a handful, but 3 first-round picks. So now that we're here, he's finally going to get a chance to use that quarterback. But it took another, and I don't want to call last year a waste because they did make it to the NFC Championship, but they did so without needing Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, everybody is wondering why Jimmy's not signed. And yeah, a lot of that is due to his shoulder, but think about what a lot of scouts, I should say, it's the last thing you remember. The last thing you remember was Jimmy Garoppolo in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship. That was not good. We don't have to worry about that anymore because there's a 3rd overall pick here. And I am pretty confident that everybody in the organization, as we're hearing, they don't trust Trey. Everybody in the organization is going to trust Trey Lance. So I would tell the alien that, yes, what you saw was not pretty at the quarterback position, but you no longer have to worry about that because now there's going to be somebody under center who can run the entire offense.
Kyle, I wish we had a little bit more time, but it's not just a YouTube hit with Larry where you can go on for an hour. We're up against the clock here, but this was an awful lot of fun. I'm glad we finally met. Larry, I understand why you keep on having this guy back on. He knows his goods.
Kyle's the man. Check him out on Niners Nation.
Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
See ya.
Kyle Posey. I mean, you probably put him on. You make him work for about an hour. We just, 10 minutes.
Minimum is like 40.
Yeah. No, it's look, the guy knows, and
he's good. He knows his stuff. He coaches football in Arizona too.
I'll tell you, this situation with Trey Lance, I want to get back into it just a little bit on the other side of the break, because as you were saying, you actually do think that there is a world where that quarterbacking room could coexist peacefully and productively. And, look, I kept on returning to this. God forbid Trey Lance, 3 starts, Niners are 3-0, looking good. Like Dazed and Confused, looking tough. Everyone really, really excited about the start, and then something happens in a practice. Oh my goodness, he is going to miss the remainder of the year. Is there a better backup insurance policy than Jimmy Garoppolo?
One of my keys that we didn't touch relates to this.
Is that a tease? That feels like a tease to me, boys and girls. I know I'm teased. You're teased. Larry teasing us in for Ray Ratto this week. And when we come on back, we will get into the tease. Stick around. Damon and Ratto, Larry Krueger in here. Brought to you by Fremont Bank. Full service banking, no compromises.
Watch 95.7 The Game on Twitch and YouTube.
Ron Lotus with us here on Willard and Dibs.
Do you see Logan Webb as borderline untouchable based on his ability and team control?
Logan Webb, we'd all want to keep here. I mean, the obvious thing is saying, no, we want to.
95.7 The Game.
We're brought to you by Trimark, partnering with independent restaurateurs in Northern California for over 55 years. Trimark helps with innovative product solutions to help your hospitality business thrive. Visit TrimarkWest.com. I was reading, Larry, a story about how San Francisco has always been a boom town, and with every boom comes a bust. And that's just how booms work. And that, everyone agreed that the two biggest problems with San Francisco is that it was overcrowded with techies. Well, the best part of the pandemic, and even though this hurts, our friends in the restaurant and the bar business, is San Francisco has never been less crowded, and it's because half the techies are kind of gone. So people need to stop complaining about, San Francisco, it's never been in a worse situation. Have you been out lately? It's awesome in San Francisco right now. It's fantastic in this town. You can get a table. You can get to your favorite restaurant. You're not waiting 6 deep in any bar anymore because Trevor and Tristan with their, tech vests are there on a tech bender.
They're paying $75 for a fusion salad or something.
Exactly. San Francisco feels good right now, baby. It's a gorgeous day outside. Looking forward to a nice weekend. We're back, baby, is what I'm trying to say. It's official.
We're here in what would you call this neighborhood?
I always called it Media Gulch.
It's kind of like south of North Beach,
right?
Or east of North Beach, north of Embarcadero.
Yeah, Little Media Gulch, Levi Valley. I've also heard it called.
Okay.
South Beach. No, to me, that's
not
just
South Beach.
No, that's not.
First of all, you can't use South Beach.
Right, that's taken.
That's taken.
Miami's got it.
But the South Beach isn't South Beach that little area south of Market with a park, or is that South Park? No. What's that?
No, there is a South Park right there with a little. Yeah, it's like
circle.
A loop around the circle. Yeah. Pat Johnson Photography Studio over there.
Yes.
That's my guy.
Yes.
Love Pat Johnson. Pat, shout it out, baby. Damon, Patagonia vest. Those people, they're gone. Half of them. It's really nice.
Right.
There's
a little more wildlife.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
you get late night, you're going to run into some coyotes. You're going to run into some wildlife rolling around.
Dude, someone's like, you ain't visiting the neighborhoods that people are talking about, Damon. Sounds like you're a marina guy or da-da-da-da. Try the TL. The Tenderloin has always had someone pooping in the middle of the street. Since 1964, there's been someone pooping in the middle of the street in Tenderloin. There are always neighborhoods that will always be a challenge. The city, from a vibes going out, it's starting to feel like it's breathing again, man. It really, really does. It feels good. I'm happy.
There are a number. I mean, as somebody who grew up here, there have been a lot of transitions. I can remember in high school, they would say, if you don't do your homework, you're going to wind up on the corner of 3rd and Howard. Well, now 3rd and Howard is like,
not bad.
3rd and Howard. It's a pretty nice little neighborhood right over there. It's high rent district. So, there have been evolutions of the city, but
right.
It's probably safer than it's been, but it's also probably a little dirtier than it's been.
It has. We got challenges there for sure. We know that. By the way, do you know why it's called the Tenderloin?
No,
it's not because it's in the middle of the city. It's because that's always been a dodgy neighborhood, and the cop who walked that beat got paid a little bit more, which means that Friday he could afford the Tenderloin down at the butcher. That's why it was called the Tenderloin.
Really?
Yes.
That's good. That's good SF knowledge. That's like something you'd hear at the bar at Lefty O'Doul's or something.
How hard was it for you to stop saying good knowledge? Just be honest.
It's very good knowledge. I did pick it up from an older gentleman along the way.
So
I
almost. So we were talking about something that you teased, the coexistence of Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. It's so funny. Now that Jimmy Garoppolo is about to exit stage left is the way it really feels. We're sort of reevaluating. Should that happen? Should that happen? Could that happen? What do you think?
Well, we were just debating the 5 questions, and it was the 5 questions of what? It was the 5 things that would help the 49ers or that would prevent them from reaching the postseason.
Keys to reaching the postseason.
Right. So one of my keys, and I didn't, we were trying to go away from Trey because that was kind of the premise of the thing. But to me, there are 3 49ers that the season is not lost, but man, the team is not nearly as good if these three guys go down. And that is George Kittle at tight end, Trent Williams at left tackle. And if Jimmy Garoppolo moves, it's Trey Lance at quarterback. Because if George Kittle goes down, you're looking at what? Ross Dwelly, Charlie Werner, Tyler Croft, Jordan Matthews.
Here's the thing.
You know what I'm saying?
You could maybe cobble together some production, but it would hurt as a huge target, and it would hurt your running game as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it would hurt your ability to blow people off the line in the run game, and it's going to take away. I think Kittle is the emotional leader.
Without a doubt.
I mean, when you could feel when he's out there.
Yes.
Okay, so Kittle's one. And the step from number 1 tight end to number 2 tight end is significant. Left tackle has got to be one. I mean, if Trent Williams goes down, it's the Colton McKivitz show. I mean, that's nothing against Colton because I like him. I think he's a good player. He's versatile and
not
tough.
a 99 on this year's Madden.
Right. And you're talking about the best left tackle in the game, and you don't really have the step down to number 2 is monumental. And then Trey, if you do get rid of Garoppolo, and if you do get rid of Garoppolo and Trey, let's say everybody's worried about is Trey going to play well? I think it's likely that he's going to play well, but I think it's also likely that he may have an injury somewhere along the line because he's such a young, tough kid who wants to take on linebackers that he may miss 5 or 7 games. Well, if you miss 5 or 7 games and you got a good backup, you may win 4 or 5 of those games or 6 out of 7 of those games. But if you're going to Nate Sudfeld, you might go 0-5. You might go 0-7. You may lose the season just because you lost Trey for a month and a half. So that's why, and I do believe Brock Purdy will beat out Nate Sudfeld in camp. I've said that a couple times, and I believe that Purdy.
Doubting Hoosier.
I like Purdy.
Doubting my Hoosier.
Yeah, I really am here. As far as I don't see any strengths for Sudfeld. I don't see arm strength. I don't see mobility. I don't see anything that's great.
I'll tell you what his greatest attrute is. He's 6'6".
Yeah, he's 6'6".
He's a big guy.
Yeah. But Purdy, if you watched him in the minicamp, everything's out on time. He's deadly accurate. He's hitting guys in stride. They're not even breaking stride. So, and then you looked at his numbers at Iowa State. Guy threw for 12,000 yards and close to 80-something odd touchdowns.
He's one of the more prolific passers in Big 12 history.
Right. And he was one of the most productive quarterbacks in this collegiate draft. So I predict that Purdy beats out Sudfeld, and I'm okay with the Purdy-Sudfeld backup behind Trey. But if you could figure out a way to make it work where it wasn't a huge distraction and you could keep Garoppolo, it's the question I was throwing Willard the other day. If I gave you $100,000 and said you got to put it on the Niners to win the Super Bowl, and you can either have just Trey Lance or you can have Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo as the backup, what would you take? Now, some people would say clear the decks for Trey Lance, can't have the distraction, so on and so forth. But if you really had that $100,000 ticket, I think you would probably take Lance and Jimmy, because what happens if there's an injury? You still got to qualify for the playoffs.
True or false? Jimmy Garoppolo cast as a backup quarterback is the premier backup quarterback in the NFL.
No doubt. Easily. Who's even close? Maybe who's battling Trubisky? I guess Kenny Pickett and Trubisky are going to battle, right?
But are we sold on Kenny Pickett in any way? No. So I mean,
maybe Marcus Mariota if he backs up Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. And that, by the way, that was the latest rumor that I heard on Jimmy today, was that the Falcons, who have Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota slated to battle it out in camp for that number 1, that they are showing interest in Jimmy G. They'd have to clear some cap room to make it happen. But that's a team name that I had not heard.
I'm still surprised that Houston is like in the Davis Mills camp, no doubt about it. That to me is a little bit of a surprise. I thought he was a little bit of a surprise last year. He's good. He's good. And what he definitely
is, 5-star high school.
He's smart. We know that.
And he's mobile.
Yeah. All right. Today, the Cleveland Browns signed Josh Rosen, which means he's still chosen by someone. You want to talk about a guy whose college career has come nowhere close to the promise of what we've seen in the pros. I thought he was going to be a good quarterback, man. I did.
Guy had a hot tub in a high rise. He had a hot tub in his dorm room, which was in a high rise building.
Right. That to me, that's a value add.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, when you got a hot tub on the 11th floor, you're feeling pretty good about your future. But you know what? He was a tennis player, and he comes from a family of means. And I don't know that he ever really had that fire, like that I got to do this. It ain't going down that way. It's going down this way. He seems like more talent and like he doesn't need pro football.
He's Johnny Manziel in terms of the home that he came from. Johnny came from wealth, but he played like an animal in college and then just, never grew up beyond his college years.
He didn't throw the ball like this guy. Rosen throws the ball way better than Johnny.
Well, that's the thing, too. Rosen got Kyler Murray. Oh, by the way, I don't even know how we waited this long into the show to tell you what happened to Kyler Murray today. Kyler Murray agreed to a 5-year, $230.5 million extension with 160 guaranteed. I mean, by comparison, Deshaun Watson's got a 5-year, $230, all of it guaranteed. But this is a significant commitment to Kyler Murray for a team that, it felt like they were kind of getting on the fence about him for whatever reason. Like the Arizona Cardinals have anything, other than Kyler Murray steering them in the direction of credibility. The annual average value, $46.1 million. By the way, the A's active payroll right now is $41.9 million. 46.1 annual average for Kyler Murray. The entire A's payroll, no question that his decision to be an NFL quarterback has paid off. I mean, look, if Kyler Murray had said yes to the A's, what is this, year 3 for him? He's probably still in the minor league system. And even if you fast-tracked him to the majors, he is at best a Super 2 at this point and making $780,000, even if he's leading the league in average and stolen bases and RBI. Like him winning for the A's to have put their eggs in the Kyler Murray basket. And then he's like, yeah, I'm going to Oklahoma. They should have been like, oh no, we're never going to see him. I mean, that they can't afford to throw away picks. I can't believe that they stuck with Murray through it all.
Maybe he fooled them into thinking he was going the baseball route. But I would normally say if I had a kid and he was great at 2 sports, baseball and football, I'd say play baseball, unless you're a quarterback. If you're a quarterback, football is a better financial play than baseball. Baseball is a very difficult sport to make it to the major leagues. But as far as Kyler Murray, he's the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And he's literally crapped the bed in the second half of the year, almost his entire career. Here's from week 8 on, the last 3 years, the Cardinals are 7 wins and 18 losses with Kyler Murray at quarterback.
You could also say you could put a lot of the blame on the coach, who has that exact same pattern of strong starts, terrible finishes, going back to Texas Tech.
Yeah, no, that's the counter. There's no doubt. That is the counter, is that Cliff Kingsbury, the coach of the Cardinals, has struggled in the second half of years, as Damon just said, going back beyond the Cardinals, going back to college. So maybe it's a Kingsbury deal.
Welcome, boys and girls, children of all ages, to your 5 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station.
I am the second NBA player to host this award show, which is kind of crazy to think about. LeBron James, he hosted this award show back in 2007 after losing in the NBA Finals. So yes, you guessed it. This feels better.
There you go. Steph Curry last night shows you that he truly is a man for all seasons. Basketball season, golf season, putt season, and now he hosted a show on ABC last night, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's more than just hosting a show on ESPN. And he walked around that stage with a cocktail in his hand. That guy, I mean, you want to talk about the phrase, he makes love to pressure? Steph Curry made an awful lot of love to pressure and delivered a hell of an opening monologue in a show that without him, we would not even be talking about right now. Nobody cares who won a single award at the ESPYs. How did Steph do hosting it? Of course, he crushed it.
There's been a couple things that I wasn't sure about in with Steph Curry. One of them, how would he do in this moment? Because it's, you're hosting, you're on the stage by yourself. I know there's a lot of prep that goes into it, but still, this is not what you're best at.
No, and you got writers, obviously you got a team of comedians getting you set, ready to go. Although Curry said that he didn't bring a team of comedians. This is the pre-recorded intro where he's got Aisha and his kids writing jokes for him.
I appreciate all the jokes and advice, but at the end of the day, I just decided to fill my writer's room with people that I trust.
Why is the Sacramento Kings arena so hot?
I don't know.
Because they ain't got no fans.
That is gold.
All right. Why should the Houston Astros live in the jungle?
Because they're a bunch of cheetahs.
What?
It's true.
I knew I could count on y'all. Thank you.
By the way, it's amazing how ESPN basically turns the ESPYs into, we're just going to troll sports. We're going to be like the meanest possible joke tellers. Peyton Manning, part of that montage, giving Steph Curry advice how to do it. Big shot at Durant here. It's pretty funny.
Hey, Steph, Peyton here. Got a couple thoughts for you. Listen, I know you must be feeling a lot of pressure because it has been a long time since an NBA player performed well in Los Angeles. When I hosted the ESPYs 5 years ago, I made a little quip about Kevin Durant wanting to play for a great team that made a lot of headlines. Feel free to use that one because it hasn't aged a day.
It's true, but no.
If you start to get nervous and you lose confidence, just do what I did. Just remind yourself how much worse the show would be if your brother was hosting.
Pretty damn funny. Peyton Manning's good at delivering the written line for him, too. But Curry did a great job. Like Dean Martin, he had a cocktail. He's working the entire stage. And look, did you hear how smart of a diplomat he is in there, though? He gives him the evergreen Durant joke, and Curry makes sure that in the broadcast, he's like, no, I'm not telling that one because, hey, we might circle back. By the way, there will be no circling back. Part of today's news, I guess, is that Bob Myers has pretty much let Mark Medina of NBA.com, our friend here on 95.7 The Game, he basically said, look, I like my team. I like where it's at, and my team's on the floor is basically what we've heard out of Bob Myers. So don't expect Kevin Durant to show back up in a Golden State Warriors uniform.
And you know what? I'm fine with that. I am. And I also saw the Vegas over-under came out on Golden State, and they're 51.5.
Over.
Yeah, they're going over. I like Warriors over. I like Kings over as well. 33 for Kings, 51 for Warriors.
I noticed that they got the Lakers off the board.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Really? I bet I won money last year betting the Lakers under. It was 52.5 on opening night. And I'm sitting there going, what? 52.5. They get 9 new players. They ain't winning 53 games. It's not going down like that. So that was the easy underplay last year.
Curry, though, I want to take you through some of this from the ESPYs. And Dave Fleming's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk about the second half of the baseball season, starting the night down at Dodger Stadium. Carlos Rodon against Mitch White of the Dodgers tonight, and David B. Fleming will join us soon. We have Steph Curry talking about how, nothing makes you want to get back out there like spending some time at home.
When the announcement came out that I'm hosting the ESPY Awards, there's a lot of questions. You just came off a grueling year, unbelievable finals. Why don't you want to go on vacation? Kick your feet up, relax. Why you keep filling up the schedule? But after celebrating 3 kids' birthdays in 2 weeks, I finally understand why Tom Brady keeps coming back to work. But the relaxation sometimes is exhausting. So Tom Brady, speaking of, he's the only guy I know on earth who'd rather get hit by Aaron Donald than hang out with a supermodel. We all make choices. Sometimes you don't understand some of them. So
again, Curry working the room.
That is awesome.
Sauntering around the stage, cocktail. I'm surprised they didn't mic it so they didn't pick up the ice cubes going clink, 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 clink. Mic that cocktail.
My favorite Curry moment of the year was that game 4 when he started pounding his chest to try to distract the Celtic fans in Boston from just crushing Draymond Green. And he kind of just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to wear this, like jump aboard my back. I'm going to take the blame. I'm going to take the arrows and trying to take a little pressure off
when he had
Draymond.
the 43.
Yeah. But that moment where he's barking and he kept walking away from the bench at the timeout in the first half, that was so uncharacteristic of Steph. But then you found out that kind of like the method to his madness, and it just shows what a great leader he is.
He is. He's quiet for the most part until it's time to not be quiet. And look, there's an awful lot of power in his silence, which adds gravity to when he gets, demonstrative. I mean, it really does. And I keep on saying that anyone who tries to boil Steph's career down to a singular or granular moment is missing what Steph Curry is. Steph Curry's career-defining moment is 5 consecutive trips to the NBA Finals. His career-defining moment needs to be appreciated from 35,000 feet. That's why anyone who wanted to say he needs to win a Finals MVP to then join the
Courtney Cronin.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well,
did you see what Kidd said about him today?
No.
Said that Steph Curry in Kidd's mind, Jason Kidd, Kidd was this guy when he played. He says he's the best conditioned NBA player in the entire league.
Well, without a doubt.
That he just goes and goes and goes, and that's what stood out to Kidd.
You can't keep up with him. Curry really is. He's a killer. And if you did need the one game, the one moment to look at, that's it. Game 4 of this year's NBA Finals. It was when he just ripped Boston's heart out. Speaking of that,
got that on the DVR, by the way, and it's not going away.
No, it's that you're going to want to
Game 6, Game 4, they're there.
Save until I delete. This is Curry talking to Boston Celtic Grant Williams, who Grant Williams was in the room, I guess.
Speaking of the Celtics, Grant Williams, I see you in the building. It's great to see you again, my man. Hey, I know you like this color. I'll let you borrow it after I'm done, but I might even let you wear a ring. You might.
It was an off-green suit. So he had one moment where he kind of wanted to recap this sort of year that he had. And then, of course, a little self-deprecating humor tacked on the end.
Super Bowl champions. I know that sounds great. It was so inspiring watching y'all play, watching y'all win a Super Bowl.
Wait, did I get the right one there? No, I think I touched the wrong button. Pardon me. Where was that? Oh, here it is.
I don't get the opportunity to brag very often, so y'all just allow me to do that for a second. The Warriors, we won our 4th championship in 7 years. I got that little trophy everybody said I needed. I can't remember what it's called. Got to break the NBA all-time career three-point record, which is special. It's an amazing year, but somehow, I'm still getting overshadowed by Draymond Green's podcast. I can't even be mad at it. It's a great show. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. It's great.
Draymond never missing an opportunity to plug away, by the way.
That's right. All right. Our next presenters are.
Welcome back to the Draymond Green Show.
Hold on. What's going on over there, man?
I'm live from LA, home of 7 professional teams and the Clippers.
Shot at the Clippers. Like that.
Yes. Very nice.
Remember, the Clippers were supposed to be the team that the Warriors became. Steph also, I guess, walking around the room, working the room, as it's known in the business, stumbled upon the table that Draymond and his group were sitting at and had this.
I'm sorry, man. Y'all got a good thing going over here, but y'all got to shut this down.
Steph, why we got to shut it down? He just gave a first take this. Okay, that's Cliff?
Yeah, I brought some muscle with me. I got to shut this down now. Come on, man.
Yeah, he got the drink braids. We got to go.
You know what? Man, I've been kicked out of bigger situations than this, bro.
Yeah.
Good line. I'll give him that much. I'll tell you, Draymond could absolutely be booked as next year's host of this.
Oh, how good would he be doing this?
You'd have to put it over on HBO. That's the thing. There's no way he could do a network.
It's like Seinfeld versus Curb Your Enthusiasm. It has to be HBO.
Exactly. That's a great, what do you give me for right there? Let's get back to Curry taking a stab at the Rams.
Super Bowl champions. I know that sounds great. It was so inspiring watching y'all play, watching y'all win a Super Bowl, watching y'all celebrate. And it's just inspiring to see that strategy of, buying old superstars pay off for a local team around here. Hey, Mutombo, where Mutombo at? I heard you're looking for a 10-day. Yes? or no. Hit up Rob Pelinka, let him know.
Oh, just killing the Lakers.
I thought when he brought up the Rams, he was going to bring up Stafford, ignoring that fan that fell off the stage.
Oh, I remember that.
But maybe that person got seriously hurt. Maybe that's not joke worthy.
I don't know. Finally, just wrapping up here, Curry, maybe the best line of the night was this one right here.
We're in the fourth quarter of the show, which means all the LA fans are finally here. Appreciate y'all showing up. It also means all the Miami fans are already gone. So thanks for coming.
Klay Thompson ended up winning the Comeback Athlete of the Year. And think of all he's been through to come back, play as well as he did under the circumstances he played on, and help the Warriors to another NBA championship. Here's Klay's moment in the sun last night during the ESPYs.
The first guy I would like to thank is the host, who's done a tremendous job tonight, Steph Curry. I mean, I've been living in this guy's shadow for a decade. It's pretty nice. I mean, Draymond and Andre can relate. Like, got some jewelry to show for us, so it's a pretty nice life. But 2.5 years ago, like, I knew we would be back here, but to be here and in front of all y'all, these amazing athletes. I got Super Bowl champs, Olympic gold medalists, World Cup winners, you name it. It's just an incredible honor. I would not be here without the Warriors organization. I mean, who pays a guy after tearing his ACL? Like, that's unheard of, but they have faith in me. So I know you're out there somewhere, Bob. I appreciate you. Peter Guber as well, and Joe had faith in us.
Again, Joe got tagged for a $500,000 fine just yesterday, which is kind of ridiculous because no one was complaining about how much they were paying an NBA luxury tax when that man had his torn ACL and then Achilles, and the Warriors were winning 15 games. Wasn't brought up then. They had to win a title for anyone to sort of be offended by how much the Warriors are spending. All that happened last night at the ESPYs down in Los Angeles. And speaking of down in Los Angeles, that is where David B. Fleming joins us from here on Damon and Ratto with Larry Krueger, probably a new guy to the market that you're not familiar with, Dave. We're going to introduce you here in a second, but Dave Fleming is presented by the County of Santa Clara. Book a COVID-19 booster shot now at seccfreevax.org or call 211. Dave, how you doing? Larry Krueger, it's time you guys met.
Doing great, Damon, and I've missed hearing Larry's voice to talk to.
Oh, we got a bad cell phone. Let's reset that cell phone because we need a clear David B. Fleming as we are getting ready again for a Giants second half. They won 7-9 going into the break. It's a little bit momentum. I don't know how much momentum a team can carry though through an All-Star break. You think that's possible?
Well, let's hope not, because LA was 15-2 in the final 17 going into the break. So hopefully hopefully they'll cool off. I like the Giants tonight. In fact, I'm throwing some money on the Giants tonight.
Well, you're throwing money on Carlos Rodon, who is one of the best pitchers in the first half. 8-5, 2.66. We got Dave back. Dave, just one moment. Look, they have a 7-game roadie to start the second half. And then it's going to be 8 of 15 against the Dodgers tonight. So it's really nice that they get Carlos Rodon right out of the rip. And it's probably, I'm sure he was disappointed he couldn't participate in the All-Star celebration and sensation, but it's good that the Giants have him ready to go. And I believe we have Dave Fleming ready to go once again. Dave, you with us?
We're working on it. Dodger Stadium is the absolute worst when it comes to anything functioning for DC, setting up our booth, for phone calls, for anything. So I don't know if it sounds any better. I hope so.
You sound an awful lot better this time around. Certainly. Just keep on hanging out that press box window. Just don't fall forward, if you would, please.
Yeah. It is a little. I am a little scared of heights, and this is a booth where you feel like you could tumble right on down. I don't go after foul balls here.
Yeah, no. Nothing's worse than Washington, though, right?
That's the highest stuff. Washington is the highest. There are a few others, though, that are challenging now. I mean, that's the trend in baseball. Put us up on the rooftop where we have to watch on TV to do the game. I guess, COVID, we got used to it. So no complaints. I'm happy to be back to some baseball, and I'm very happy to talk to both of you. My cell phone cut out when I was saying I missed hearing Larry's voice. So it's great to hear Larry, too.
Well, Dave, it's good to hear you as well. And, Brandon Crawford said something today, and he's talking about how the Giants have been inconsistent in the first half of the year. And he said a lot of our first half consistency has to do with the lineup. And it's like, if you look at the numbers, the numbers look pretty good offensively across the board, but they'll score 12 runs and then they won't get a hit the next day till the 6th. Is there anything that you can point to as somebody who watches them daily as to why we see these kind of stops and starts with the offense this year?
Well, I don't think there's a real good reason. I think I would just guess that the guys that the Giants were really expecting to be sort of the everyday anchors of the lineup are Brandon, and I think I'd probably put Yaz in there as well. I mean, those are the three guys you're saying, okay, they have all these platoons, they like to mix and match, but maybe the three guys who are going to get the most at-bats on this team are those three, and those three have not stayed healthy. Yaz has mostly stayed healthy, but he's had by his standards a very inconsistent year. And so I think, part of it is when you feel like you're having to mix and match almost every spot for lots of different reasons, it is sort of conducive to get some inconsistency. So not that I'm trying to put blame or extra pressure on those guys, but I think that has been a difference this year versus last year, where the two Brandons, especially when they were in the lineup last year, they were producing just one day after another, and it kind of formed the anchor for the whole lineup.
With Crawford on the 10-day IL, an already shaky defense is, primed to get off to a shaky start. How long do you expect Brandon to be out? And do you think there could be any sort of like retroactive and he's back before you even leave LA?
Yeah, I never expected to be very long now. Full disclosure, I did not talk to Brandon today. I didn't see him down when I was downstairs. So I didn't have a chance to ask him personally how he's feeling. He's a guy who prides himself. I mean, it's a big part of his legacy in his own mind, being out there every day, being an Iron Man, being indestructible, all those things. And this is the first year where, he had, I guess it was 2018 maybe, where he was kind of banged up. But other than that, he's been so healthy and durable. And it bugs him not to be in there, really does. But I think what we saw the last week, or, it wasn't last week, but when they tried to bring him back and he said he was good to go after the collision in Atlanta, and he came back and he just still wasn't right. It still wasn't perfect. So I think they're going to err a little bit more on the side of being careful with it this time and just try to let it fully heal, as opposed to what Brandon always wants to do. And that is, all right, I can bend my knee, I can push off a little bit, I'm back in there. I want to be in there.
Dave, Trevor Rosenthal, he was brought in today, and Mauricio Jovera was put on the 60-day DL. What do you think? I mean, you've seen Rosenthal for years. He's been around both leagues, throws hard. He's not healthy right now, but what do you think of the addition?
Well, he's almost never been healthy. So that's the key. It's just he's had such an injury-riddled career. But the last time he was out there on the field in an extended capacity was 2020 with the Padres, and he was awesome, like dominant awesome. So I think, to me, that's a worthwhile bet to make, even though you got to pay him a little cash. Like if somehow you even got 6 weeks of that guy at peak performance, we're talking about a playoff race that's going to come down to the end, and a game could make the difference in or out. And that is a difference maker right there. If he pitches like he did in 2020, that's a difference maker. Now that could be a big if, but I like the move, because it's funny how in spring training, in my mind, the question was, man, the Giants have too many relievers, too many arms, too many guys. And now here we are just a couple months later, and they're thinner than they have been. And they've got some options down in the minor leagues, some guys who have climbed the ladder pretty quickly. Maybe we'll see some of those in September or even earlier. But I think this gives them another chance to get somebody who can fill one of those roles, because they are a little thinner than they have been the last couple of years.
Like the old cliche says, you can never, ever have enough pitching. Dave Fleming joining us as the second half gets underway. Carlos Rodon against Mitch White tonight, Giants and Dodgers. And look, it's right into the frying pan. 7 of 9. They won 7 of 9 going into the break, but they opened with a 7-game roadie, so the schedule really doing no favors there. But, you open up hot. They got 8 of their next 15 against the Dodgers. If they were going to do anything to make any sort of a division race interesting, it's now or never, Dave.
Yeah, correct. And you know, the problem is when you really work out like the math, like even if you go 8-4 in 12 games head to head against them, or, you know, that's looking a little farther ahead, but just take 8 games head to head and say, well, what if we go 5-3 or 6-2 or even 7-1? You still are facing a pretty decent deficit. It's just hard. They're a long way back, and the Dodgers are really, really good. But that doesn't mean that these aren't super important games, and you can put some pressure on them. And I think it's important to put some pressure on them. And they have to face, I mean, how many games do we have left? 14 total against the Dodgers between now and the end of the year. If you want to be in the playoffs, you got to play well in those games. So whether you're going to chase the Dodgers down or not, these are really important games. And plus, I think what you said is absolutely right. They won 7 of 9, and a few of those games really look like the version of themselves that they want to be, really look like the team that they want to be. And you have a chance to kind of keep that feeling going here if you play well in this series.
It's amazing what LA has gotten out of Tyler Anderson and Gonsolin. I knew they had great first halves, but 21-1 from that duo was amazing. But Dave, I got to ask you, because the big story in the last couple of days has been Juan Soto and the Nationals moving Juan Soto, and are the Giants interested? Bob Nightingale says 7 teams have shown preliminary interest. The Giants he lists as one of those teams. We all know Soto's a great player. How viable do you think acquiring him really is for the Giants?
Oh, I mean, I think it's very viable. I mean, why all 29 teams wouldn't be listed as interested in Juan Soto? I don't get. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing as a GM if you're not calling and finding out what it's going to take? Like, you're talking about arguably the most valuable player in the game just based on performance and age. The guy's 23 years old. He's younger than Joey Bart, and he's a 4 or 5 year established star in the major leagues who was helping the Nationals win a World Series when he was 20 years old. I mean, talking about a special talent. So that's a different question of, like, everybody should be interested in him. How viable is it for the Giants? I think it's viable. I mean, I think if they wanted to do it, I think he would have interest in coming here, and I think the Giants would have what it takes to get it done. It's going to be, and it should be, a big price to pay because the guy's super, super elite. But I think it's viable.
As a broadcaster, let's say they do. They land Juan Soto, and in 2 weeks from now, you are doing a game, and Juan Soto is 2 for 2, and then all of a sudden, in comes a lefty. How are you going to handle the moment when Gabe Kapler pinch hits Austin Wins for Juan Soto?
Well, he definitely won't be doing that. Juan Soto's a guy who doesn't have the same kind of splits that Jock Peterson has. And so just purely based on, even if you take all the emotion out of it, I don't think we'll see that happening.
Right.
What happens if the Giants make the move right after they've retired Will Clark's number, 22? That's Juan Soto's number.
That's right.
Will, we love you, and this was a great ceremony, but how would you feel about letting one more guy wear that number?
By the way, we worked out a 15-year-long extension. So in 15 years, we will do. Dave, let's wrap up with one guy that you think, if the Giants are going to go ahead and be in this wild card conversation, that really needs to have a second half that makes everyone forget a first half. I mean, Lamont Wade Jr. right to the top of my list. I think that Darren Ruff really showing that power paying off. Joey Bart, what is the difference in the at-bats you're seeing now as to the at-bats before he went down? And would you even have him on your list?
Yeah, all those would be good names on a list, I think. And Joey, I think I've been really impressed with Joey. He's clearly worked hard, and even in 2 weeks, he made some changes that have paid off. Like, again, I've said this to you guys a lot. They don't need him right now. I think he still can be a star, a superstar. They don't need him to be that now. They just need him to be, solid offensively and do what he's done defensively, and he will really help this team. So I wouldn't pick him because I really think that that's going to happen. I feel confident that Joey's going to be good enough to really help this team at that spot be better than they were in the first half. my guy still will be Brandon Belt. If they can keep Brandon healthy, keep that knee healthy, Brandon's hot streaks can carry a team. You know, all those other guys can be really good. A Brandon Belt month where he gets hot wins you extra games because he's just always been that way. And I think if they get one of those Brandon Belt months, the Giants are going to be in the playoffs.
Hey, we'll let you go with this one. I saw Russo's obviously a big Giants fan, but he was commenting nationally on the All-Star game and said, it's stale. It's getting stale. I didn't love the uniforms. I would have loved to see the regular uniforms. I think I'd like to see a little different home run derby kind of format. But you're an observer of the game. What can baseball do, you think, to juice up what they call the Midsummer Classic?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think number one, I do think the Derby has become a better event with the clock. The Derby, the home run derby with the clock has really become a fun event, I think. And it was fun in the early days. Then to me, it gets stale. So I think they've done a good job of freshening that one up. What can they do for the game? Well, you know, the access stuff was really cool. The mic'd up stuff was fun. But I think by far and away, the number one thing they could do is incentivize the players, the big name players, to play in the game and stay in the game. So you get more of the, you know, what you want to see in the All-Star game is Carlos Rodon against Aaron Judge, or, you know, Juan Soto against Justin Verlander, or whatever. You want to see the great pitcher versus hitter matchups. That's what makes the All-Star game fun. And the game the other night, you know, so many of the guys are banged up. They didn't play. They didn't want to play. Then they play for an at-bat, and then they come out of the game. And the big-name players just aren't in there long enough head-to-head against one another enough to make it as compelling as it should be. However that needs to happen, whatever dollar amount it is to give the players more incentive to be out there, let's do it. I think that would spruce it up.
Did you go to Scotland to play some golf during the break?
I did. I woke up this morning in London. That's a true story. I woke up this morning in London.
That's like a Talking Head song, by the way. Cities, check it out. Look,
Good for you.
Welcome back. How was it? How'd you shoot? How the old course treat you? Were you on at St. Andrews? Where'd you go?
I was not. I went farther north. I belong to a club in Scotland. Now that sounds more impressive than it really is, but I do because it's a place that's special to me and that I love. So most of our trip was based there, and we just had a great time. I was with my dad, and you know what? We had beautiful weather, great golf, friendly people. I played well and just had a blast. It was an awesome trip,
cool.
And I've got lots of energy for tonight just because it was so invigorating. So I feel great.
Coffee, lots of coffee too. We highly recommend it. Dave, thank you very much. Welcome home, and we look forward to obviously catching up with you as the second half gets underway. Thank you for joining us today.
Anytime, Damon, and great to talk to you again, Larry.
Thanks, Dave.
There he is, Dave Fleming. Let me tell you who Dave Fleming is. Dave Fleming is a broadcaster, is the only reason why the Giants don't panic every night when they think, what are we going to do when John Miller and Krueg and Keuchel decide to go away?
He's become my favorite college football broadcaster in the country.
He's really good. He does
I
it.
love
So
him on college football.
Here is the math the Giants are going to have to do, because if Dave wants to go national route, a man for all seasons, where he's doing a lot of college football and a lot of golf because the PGA likes him an awful lot.
He's on assignment.
That's right.
He's on assignment.
That's right. But when the assignment of Krueg and Keuchel, and look, I hope they got another decade in them, and I hope John Miller gets to go Vin Scully broadcasting forever. But nothing is forever. Father Time catches up with us all. Dave Fleming is one of the greatest broadcasting guys ready for the baton when it gets passed to him in the history of baseball.
If you're looking for somebody to add to the mix in the years ahead, what about his brother? His brother does a nice job as well. Now he does it for Boston, so maybe he doesn't want to leave Boston.
Now, is he still with
no
Paw Sox, or is he up?
He's up, I believe. Will Fleming is part of the Red Sox broadcast team.
Really? All right, because I knew that he was in the minors, but I didn't know that he was.
And he's good. He's good.
Well, it runs in the family, right? Yeah. DNA, I guess, means something. Pretty cool, though. Woke up in London.
That's a long day at the office.
Small city. Dark in the daytime. Yeah, Dave could be the next Joe Buck. Yeah, he could. I mean, how about this? Whatever Dave wants to do with his career, that's going to be available to him.
Text line says, what does B stand for? Braxton. There's your Dave Fleming, for 200.
Probably the only Braxton you'll ever like, right? Like, you just know that Braxton is a pain in the ass, like, for the most part. Like Braxton, oh, that kid, man, let me tell you, helicopter parents, first kid to start crying on the playground and a skin knee. Like, there's not a lot of badass
Braxtons, is what you're saying?
No, there's not a lot of dudes with neck tattoos named Braxton, right?
No, there was some great boxer named Braxton. I gotta look it up.
I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, Dave is class act all around, and it was great to have him on. He can do whatever he wants as long as he's doing it with a microphone. There is no doubt about that. So also a thinker. And we will be thinking in just a little bit, Larry. I don't know if I've told you, but on a Thursday, we think. What will we be thinking about? Well, Lucas will tell us when the segment begins. But Thinking Man's Thursday is around the corner. Are you ready? Are you ready to think?
I am.
Okay, good. Because we're going to ask you to do a little bit of thinking before it's all said and done. Sort of out of nowhere, but I just started thinking about the A's a little bit and their stadium situation. And I know that a lot of people out there, because I'm hypercritical of this ownership, you think that, I don't like your franchise. You could not be more wrong. I think keeping 2 major league teams in the Bay Area is important for all baseball fans in the Bay Area. I love that the American and National League are sitting right here across from each other, and I never, ever want that to change. If I could snap my fingers and get the A's into a stadium at Howard Terminal or wherever, I would do it. I hope they succeed. I truly do.
The renderings are beautiful. Have you seen the renderings?
I can't root for John Fisher, but I'm not rooting against the A's getting a stadium. If you, by the way, you can't even exist in that universe, but I do exist in that universe. I have seen the renderings, and if they were to do just half of that, it would be incredible. To me, I always thought the biggest mistake here is it's not just about building a ballpark. It's the real estate deal around the ballpark. Like, just build a ballpark. Don't try to build a ballpark and Abu Dhabi all at the same time.
The village,
the most modern looking thing you've ever seen. And I think everyone would agree that anytime you see the cost of what the entire Howard Terminal construction project is, it's $12 billion. The number $12 billion has been attached to that overall construction project since that overall construction project was first proposed pre-pandemic, basically, right? So what do we know about California? All right.
Prices are going up.
So anything that they tell you today is going to be $12 billion is going to be $14 billion. Like, they told Joe Lacob how much it would cost to build Chase Center. They overran that by like $600 million. You are going to spend more than 12 just because that's the way construction goes. We just had a front door reinstalled, or we're getting a front door. Ordered a front door.
I would guess it would cost you about $3,000 to $5,000
up. So it would have pre-pandemic. We want a Mr. Ed door. We want to be able to, kind of open the top and leave the bottom closed so the kids, we get a little fresh air and the kids don't run out. So
you're very complicated that way.
Well, How
about a doggy door? You're introducing a doggy door?
No doggy door.
Okay.
No doggy door. It's a front door. It's you don't have a doggy door in your front door. Back door, we'll talk about the doggy door then. But look, like 7 GER.
Yeah.
7 GER. It's crazy how just a normal front door, like, there's nothing unique about this front door. It's wooden. It's a Mr. Ed door, which
did the guy who sell it to you talk about, oh yeah, but this is the first thing that people notice when they buy your house?
No, he didn't have to.
Really?
We knew that that's why we're replacing the damn door as it is. But the truth of the matter is, look, the bag of groceries that you bought just a year ago is $55 more today. The same bag of groceries.
At least.
Look at the cost of everything. Every single time we have heard Howard Terminal is going to cost $12 billion. How is that number not 18 at this point? Just from a fuel and steel and glass renderings alone, the cost of all business is so up with inflation and everything. To say that that is going to cost $12 billion is ridiculous. That project right now has to be north of 15, 16 if it's as is. As is. It was never going to be 12. It was going to be 14. Now with inflation and pandemic and all the nonsense that we live in, come on.
Well, you know how they make,
billion?
you know how they're
No
trying
way.
to keep the prices the same by putting less in the bag? What if the stadium just was like, didn't have an upper deck? It was just a lower deck because they just couldn't afford the upper deck.
Right.
Or you couldn't afford the outfield seats. So now, we'll quote you. We'll keep you at the quote we gave you, but now you have no bleachers. You have
It's
no
called-
outfield.
I think it's called deflation.
Deflation.
Where, in the bag of Doritos that you used to buy for $3.50, you would get 280 Doritos.
Now
they're still selling you the bag of Doritos for $3.50,
but it's like 240 Doritos.
You're getting screwed out of 30 Doritos at least. Like that is happening. Think of the mini candy. You go out on Halloween, and you would get the mini candy bars. The mini candy bars are even smaller these days. Shrinkage.
That's right.
It's shrinkage.
It's the only way to keep things the same price.
Does she know about shrinkage?
It really shrinks. You throw it in the ocean.
Yes, it does. So look, we have not shrinking, but thinking. We will do some thinking coming up next. Postman in Capitola says it's called a Dutch door, you slob. Thank you. Well, he was nicer than that. I just thought it'd be funnier to deliver it that way. But yeah, to me, it's a Mr. Ed door. That's it.
A Dutch door. He says it's classy.
Hey,
look at you.
Pinkies up.
You got
baby.
a classy door. Is Damon classy? Well, I don't know, but he's got a classy front door.
The glass ends as soon as you get through that door. We're brought to you by Trimark, which has been partnering with independent restaurateurs in Northern California for over 55 years. Trimark brings you innovative product solutions to help with your hospitality, and it thrived. You can visit TrimarkWest.com. Larry and I will be thinking next here on 95.7 The Game. You've all been warned.
Training camp starts next week.
It's time. It's Trey Lance time. It's not freak out because you heard some rumor somewhere that the 49ers don't think Trey's ready. It's Trey Lance time.
The Morning Roast and Willard and Dibs will broadcast. presented by the County of Santa Clara. The Morning Roast from 6 to 9.
I lean Kaepernick over Jimmy Garoppolo, and I lean Kaepernick over Jeff Garcia.
Big game to win right now.
I'm taking Kaepernick.
Willard and Dibs from 9 to noon.
I think they love Aaron Judge, and I think they love Juan Soto. Aaron Judge does not fit the math. Juan Soto does.
Steiny and Guru from noon to 3.
Steph Curry is actually the greatest representative of any franchise in professional sports in my lifetime.
And Damon and Ratto from 3 to 6.
Larry Bear, Charles Johnson. I don't care if they spend so much their fingernails bleed reaching into their pockets every day. Like, who cares?
The best of the game. Presented by the County of Santa Clara. Book a COVID-19 booster shot now at sccfreevax.org or call 211. Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
It is time to think. Thinking Man's Thursday starts now with Damon Bruce and Ray Ratto.
Class it up, you pigs. Welcome back, Damon and Ratto with Larry in. Larry, you've never participated in the Thinking Man's Thursday. Do you have any experience thinking?
Very, very rarely, but this kind of reminds me of my parents used to say, you know, we're going to watch Upstairs, Downstairs on KQED.
Yeah.
Could you go do something?
The only thing I watch on KQED is Leslie Sobraco's restaurant review show. Well, that's all I am.
Check, please?
Yeah, check,
Great
please.
show.
Yes. Hey, I've been to a lot of those restaurants, by the way.
Humble brag?
No, not humble brag, just fat boy. All right, Lucas, what will we be thinking about?
Speaking of eating, today's theme is Pepto-Bismol, not for the reasons you're thinking, but nausea, heartburn, and indigestion. We're going to bring in some sports from the very top. You ready?
Diarrhea.
No, we left that one out.
I hate that jingle.
Here's your stat of the day. Your stat of the day came to us yesterday, so it's stat of the yesterday.
Stat of the yesterday.
Here it is. No active NBA player has ever faced the Sacramento Kings in a playoff series.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Think about that, if you would.
Yeah,
16 seasons.
Yes, that's the thing. Is there any active 16-year? Are you telling me LeBron James has never played the Sacramento Kings?
That's what I'm telling you.
No, because it would have been in the finals. It would have been. So they haven't made the playoffs for 16 years. 16 years ago, if LeBron was around, he was in the Cavs.
You play the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's
in the finals.
Oh, you're saying in the playoffs only? Is that? Oh, okay.
Right.
It's a playoff series. I'm like, well, there's got to be some.
LeBron is probably how many players are there in the NBA that have been around for 16 or 17 years?
Udonis Haslem.
Okay.
Andre Iguodala, LeBron James. There's your list. Carmelo Anthony, maybe at this point.
Maybe.
But okay. So good luck, Mike Brown.
It's a young man's game. It shows you that the NBA is a young man's game. Nobody, for the most part, you don't play into your late 30s.
No. So what are we thinking about?
That. It's pretty crazy, right?
Oh, just thinking about that? Well, all right. Well, I'm done thinking about it. Wow. That's
quite a segment.
That's quite a stat. What else are we thinking about?
On to the next. Will Levis is the University of Kentucky's starting quarterback. I don't know if you saw what happened yesterday, but he made headlines with this.
So is he eating like an entire stick of butter now or something?
That is incredibly close.
Really?
Yesterday, he told CBS Network and actually showed them that he often puts mayonnaise in his coffee. And then he did it right then and there on camera. He took his hot mug of coffee, squeezed a nice big thing of mayo right in it, mixed it up, and took a big gulp. What do you think of that?
Well, so,
foul.
Body by mayonnaise over here. I know it's very in vogue to be a mayonnaise basher. I bash no condiments. You like ketchup, you enjoy yourself. I like mayo. I do. I like mayo.
It's easy. It's an easy thing to cut out, though. I mean, is there anything that where you say it's essential to what you're doing, to what you're making?
Like a turkey sandwich that might be too dry.
Okay, turkey sandwich would be good. But wouldn't you rather have mayo or gravy?
On a sandwich,
gravy.
Mayo.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm a turkey gravy guy.
So you're like open sandwich guy.
Well, no, when you got your Ike sandwich made for you, I'm still trying to negotiate with Ike. I'd like Ike to give me a Thanksgiving sandwich where it's turkey, just gravy, and maybe throw a couple of cranberries.
I think he's actually got a similar one on there. I think it's even called Thanksgiving dinner.
Is it?
Yeah, it might be.
Come on, Ike. Let me be on the menu.
I'll take off the full stop on you. I was the
What's
one who was
yours?
like, I was like, Larry, never give Larry a sandwich. Do me a
Damn you.
favor.
Damn you.
Mine is a steakhouse experience. It is steak, onion rings with a little A1 sauce. Yeah, a little provolone cheese on it.
I took my kid to the Sharks game, and I saw that there was an Ike's, and I'm running over there. I'm like, let's go get the Damon Bruce, right? And they don't have the Damon Bruce at the tank. They only have like 3 or 4 select sandwiches.
So my only request to Ike is that I be the most expensive sandwich on the menu, which I still am. Again, price and inflation's going up. Mayo and coffee, though, no, thank
disgusting.
You. And the people who are like trying to get YouTube video hits as they eat an entire jar of mayonnaise, that's just disgusting.
Well, remember when we were kids, there was a guy who lived to like 100 who ate a teaspoon of Vaseline every day. And so,
what?
Yeah, there was a guy who lived to like 100 who ate Vaseline. And that's so I don't, I mean, if you can eat Vaseline, I guess you could probably eat mayonnaise.
I guess. Okay, so nausea, upset stomach, indigestion. Do we have one more?
We got heartburn.
Heartburn.
This one comes from slate.com, and really through you put me onto this. They listed the top 50 greatest fictional deaths of all time. The most tear-jerking, hilarious, satisfying, and shocking death scenes in 2,500 years of culture. To me, there are a couple omissions that really formed my childhood. Pretty much anything Disney, like Mufasa dying, Nemo's mom, Bambi's mom. Like I said, Disney could have its own list. What's a fictional death that sticks with you guys in your mind?
No doubt. The one that sticks with me is from the 80s series Dallas, Who Shot JR?
Okay.
Remember Larry Hagman?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
That was like
America's first TV cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, it captivated the nation. You had to live through it.
So to me, it because he just redeemed himself and then he dies in Luke's arms. Darth Vader's death kind of got to me as a kid. I'm glad because I saw the list. I even shared it with you, Lucas. When I was a kid, the cartoon that haunted my childhood was Watership Down. Did you ever see Watership Down? It's about a briar of rabbits. It's about rabbits. And
why did it haunt you so much?
Because it gets incredibly violent and dark. And no spoilers. Book was written in the early 1900s, for goodness sakes. But
for me, it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and seeing that kid get dragged up through the tube.
Augustus Gloop?
I mean, that was pretty traumatic. And also the witch from Wizard of Oz as a child was just like terrifying.
Yeah, but does she? Yeah, well, but she gets the puddle, so like you kind of celebrate her death.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't know that she's dead, I guess, till the end. Right?
Anyway, so the star, the main rabbit of Watership Down, Hazel, dies at the end, and that hurts. That stayed with me because it was good. It was nice that it died. Hazel had done everything that the colony of rabbits needed. And then lays down and dies at the end. Like my burden is over. And that's the sun god takes him away. Watership Down, kids. Look it up.
Text line has a couple good ones here. It says the guy who ate Vaseline was the person who invented Vaseline, Robert Chesbrough. And he lived to 96. He says, check it. And then a lot of people are saying Fredo. Godfather 2.
Optimus Prime was a big death. It depends on where the death occurred in your childhood, right? I mean, that's part of it. Because when you're a kid, it hits you big. A lot of people are saying, what about the wife from the first 5 minutes of Up? That's one of the all-time tearjerkers, no doubt.
Starting Ed Asner as the key voice there.
Yes, good Ed Asner, Paul. All right, that's it. That's good. We might have to get back into that tomorrow. It's so interesting. Wallace from The Wire. When they get Wallace season 1. Oh man. Thanks to Bill Shaiken, to Kyle Posey, and David Braxton Fleming for joining us here today. Good stuff. Lucas, thank you very much. Grandy, thank you. Larry Krueger, thank you. We will wrap up the week tomorrow. And we got ourselves, what do we got coming up tomorrow? Is there anything we need to forward promote right now? That's a no. Sports don't build a character. They reveal it.
And like that,